What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto runs away and everyone begged for his forgiveness too late? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. The streets of Konoha were empty as its citizens had retreated to their homes for the night. The moon shone brightly on the village as a lone shadow streaked across the rooftops. The shadow was too small for a grown ninja, yet the shadow was moving with a level of stealth that would have made a Chunin proud. The shadow belonged to a young boy by the name of Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto was pissed. He knew that expecting any sort of fairness from the people around him was a bit too foolish of him, but what happened today had just been ridiculous. There was an academy teacher that took classes when Iruka-sensei wasn't around. Today, his favorite sensei had been on leave, and so the man had taken charge of their classes. He had paired Naruto against that cold Uchiha bastard again for a no-holds-barred match. He had smirked that Naruto could use the practice if he intended to go for the graduation exam. Naruto knew that the teacher did that on purpose so he would lose and get humiliated, but this time Naruto had been prepared. Who cares if he had used less than honorable means to defeat the Uchiha? They were ninjas, damn it. Ninja are supposed to be masters of deception and subterfuge? Or whatever, he fumed. Instead of praise, he had been yelled at and sent home. Even most of his classmates had bad-mouthed him. The fangirls had hit him for daring to singe their hero's hair and eyebrows. They had looked at him with those cold and hateful eyes. It had hurt. Naruto had not wasted his time at his home. After spending some well-deserved time yelling curses and screaming about injustice, he had sat down to plot his revenge. He chuckled. The teacher would never know what hit him. Naruto's face was home to an evil smile as he bounded away to his destination. He grinned as he remembered the spar. Flashback. Naruto groaned as he heard the teacher pair him up with the bastard. He heard others sniggering as they realized that they were going to get free entertainment. As he walked into the middle of the training area, he heard his crush asking why the oh-so-cool prodigy had to be paired up with the bottom of the class. He didn't show it, but it hurt. Naruto tried hard not to smirk. He had known this would happen as soon as Iruka-sensei had announced yesterday that he would be on leave today and told the class that he had arranged a replacement. He had known who the replacement was going to be. He felt the tags he had bribed Choji to buy for him. They were expensive, but they were going to be worth it when the haughty Uchiha ate dust at the end of the spar. He smirked as he took a stance. The dark-haired boy opposite him seemed to regard him with indifference, as if Naruto was just a minor inconvenience he just had to swat away. Naruto's hands stiffened. It was this attitude that stopped Naruto from approaching the Uchiha, even though he knew that the boy was as lonely as him. Naruto had noticed that the boy was hurting just like himself. Many a times he had come across the last Uchiha sitting alone on the river's bank. If only he wasn't such a haughty bastard, he and Naruto could be each other's support. Naruto shook these thoughts away as he made a plan. All around the training room, people waited for the genius to pound the dead last into the ground. Both boys started circling each other. Just like Naruto had predicted, the last Uchiha took every step to counter Naruto's movement. Naruto resisted the urge to laugh out loud. He began his trap. "Oye loser. I'll take you down without even laying my hands on you," he yelled loudly. He received the response he had expected. His classmates jeered as the fangirls screamed at him. His opponent merely smirked. "Not even in 1,000 years, Dobi." Sasuke threw back at him. Naruto stumbled and fell down. Everyone laughed as Sasuke gestured for him to get up. Naruto smirked inwardly. He had counted on the bastard not attacking him while he was down. He would deem it unnecessary. Why bother when he thought he could do it with Naruto standing and alert? Naruto jumped and started to circle again. The Uchiha mirrored his movement. Naruto stopped as the bastard reached the spot where he had fallen. He grinned his prankster smile. His opponent betrayed no emotion on his face, but he was suddenly wary. You did not study in the same class as the blonde and not recognize that grin. Sasuke decided that he needed to end it before the fool tried anything. He began the seals for his jutsu. Others who recognized the seals smirked. Sasuke frowned as the blonde smirked too. He tensed as the blonde spoke. Boom! Everyone jumped as the raven-haired boy disappeared in an explosion. Everyone stared in silence as the flash from the explosion faded and revealed a smoking figure of Sasuke Uchiha on the ground. All except Naruto, who was laughing his head off. It all went downhill from there. End flashback. Naruto reached the house to which he had followed his teacher in the evening. The house was above the shops on the side of one of Konoha's smaller roads. The light was still on inside the room. Naruto peeked cautiously from the open window. The man was sitting at the table, bent over scrolls. Naruto was surprised. He had expected his teacher to be asleep by now. It was almost midnight. This would be trickier than he thought. Instead of inside the room, he would have to settle for outside or at the window. It would drastically reduce the blast zone. Naruto bit back a chuckle because he knew that to be caught now would be a crying shame. He quietly and quickly started working on his trap. After a few quiet minutes, he jumped back to check his trap. It wouldn't be visible from inside the room. The trap's trigger wire ran under the windowsill. All someone would have to do was to grip the windowsill and their fingertips would trigger the trap. Naruto took a few pebbles out of his pockets, took aim and tossed them at the wall below the window. From his hiding spot, he saw his teacher turn to look towards the window, alert. His teacher grabbed a kunai and moved towards the window. He glanced outside, his kunai held up to defend against any projectiles. Satisfied, he turned and started to walk back to his table. Naruto frowned. This man had not set off the trap. Naruto would have to try again. He threw a few more pebbles, but this time he aimed at the wall under the window sill so it would sound like someone was hiding below the window. Naruto grinned as his plan worked. The ninja jumped back to the window and in a quick movement, grabbed the window sill and bent outwards to look under it. His eyes were met by darkness, but his ears heard a distinctive snap. Suddenly, 3 balloons swung at him. Each had a smoking low-grade exploding tag. His awkward position didn't allow him to dodge as the balloons exploded and rained orange goo-like substance all over the place. His upper body that was outside his window took most of the splatter. He heard laughter and looked across the road, on the opposite roof, to see Naruto pointing and laughing at him. He was rolling on the roof, full of mirth. Serves you right for being an unfair jackass datbayo. Ha 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 ha. Naruto yelled between guffaws. He turned, gave his teacher the finger and jumped away before the, now, orange-colored ninja could catch him. He turned towards his apartment building and ran. You little piece of shit. His teacher screamed, orange color dripping from his exposed chest, neck and face as he leaned out of his window. I'll get you for this. He grabbed his weapon pouch and jumped out to follow the retreating shadow on the rooftops. Naruto turned and saw that he was being pursued. Going home was not advisable, he decided. Naruto decided to try evasive tactics. He started to stick to the shadows and took sharp turns into dark alleys, rapidly changing directions while inside the shadows. He soon found out that it wasn't doing any good and that the Chunin was slowly gaining on him. Naruto decided that desperate times called for desperate measures. Naruto ran towards the forest, hoping his teacher wouldn't want to follow him into the dark woods in the night. He was disappointed when he turned to saw the angry man gaining on him. He upped his speed even though he knew that he couldn't hope to outrun the Chunin behind him. He saw the big sign of the place he had heard the other shinobi call, the Forest of Death. He didn't want to go in there, seeing as even some of the ninja spoke of it in fear. This little moment of hesitation was all the ninja chasing him needed to close the gap between them. Naruto was about to dash left when he felt a sharp kick to the back of his spine that sent him flying into the boundary of the infamous training ground. Naruto bounced off the huge steel fence and slammed to the ground. He tried to jump back up, but failed. The kick and his fast journey from the fence to the ground had knocked the wind out of him. He breathed heavily as his teacher landed a small distance from him. You little demon, too long you have been allowed to continue to torment us. Naruto heard his teacher speak, satisfaction oozing out of every syllable. It is time that the mistake is corrected. The man sneered as he withdrew a handful of shuriken and hurled them at Naruto. Naruto screamed as the shuriken pierced his flesh. He fell to the ground, his wounds bleeding. Naruto was beginning to feel scared. His prank may have been a bit too much, but the man wouldn't kill him for that, would he? Naruto tried to scamper to his feet but was rewarded with bone-crunching kick to the side of the head. His head exploded with pain. The teacher wasn't in charge of taijutsu for nothing. His attacks hurt like other attacks had never before. He tumbled across the ground to a tree. He slammed into it and lay on the ground, grunting in pain. You will pay for all of your sins, for ruining our lives." Naruto heard the man speak. He was seriously overreacting to a prank. "The color will wash off after a bath." Naruto gasped through the pain. "You little fool. Trying to play innocent? It will not work on me. You will pay for all the lives you have taken, including my father's." The Chunin spoke as he made hand seals and shot out a fire jutsu. Naruto barely rolled out of the fire attack and felt the scalding hot air on his neck as he gasped for air. "I never killed anybody dat Bayo." Naruto replied, baffled at the response his prank had invited from his teacher. It was not unnatural for him to be despised and shunned. He had known before his prank that it would cause him to get a few bruises. But this was way beyond anything he had imagined. He was really beginning to fear for his life. Ninja using jutsu on academy students was unheard of. "Of course you have, you demon." The ninja spat back, "Just because you play the fool doesn't mean you are innocent. I'll just kill you now and avenge my father." He laughed. "You will be punished for murder. Jiji Hokage will punish you," Naruto said, trying to talk his way out of this situation. The ninja was getting more and more scary. The ninja laughed. Naruto felt hair rising on his neck. He had a premonition that something life-changing was about to happen. "No, you little brat. I will be heralded as a hero for killing the demon. Even the Hokage wouldn't be able to go against the people. He is far too soft for that." The man sneered. "He may put me on suspension, but I will go down in history as a legend. In a few years my name will be taught in the academy." He laughed and launched another fire attack at Naruto, only this was larger and was visible above the trees. Naruto couldn't dodge properly and curled into a ball to protect himself. The hot attack burned his skin as he tried to scream. The pain he felt threatened to rob him of his mind. He couldn't even scream as the fire engulfed him. He curled tighter, reducing the part of his body exposed to the attack. His tormentor laughed as he shivered on the ground. He couldn't feel his hands anymore. He had used them to shield his head from the fire. He couldn't even move to glance at them. Every movement was like he was being pricked by 1,000 white-hot needles. His teacher didn't attack for a few more seconds, then he kicked Naruto into a tree on the other side. "How can you become a legend by killing a kid like me?" Naruto asked, trying to buy time before he figured out what to do. "Haven't you wondered why you are hated so much, demon?" The man laughed. This made Naruto push back the pain and pay attention. "Should I tell you?" he mocked. "I guess it is fitting that you should know before you die, even though it is against the special law that forbids you from ever knowing it." Naruto raised his head and looked at his teacher. He had always wondered about that. Why did all the people hate him so much? Even before he had started playing pranks. In fact, he had started playing pranks so at least when the villagers would shout at him or glare at him, he would know why. Now his teacher was telling him that it was a secret and there was a law to stop people from telling him about it? Surely it couldn't be as bad as to make people wish for his death and celebrate his death. The ninja looked down at the boy and smiled a horrible smile. "You are the nine-tailed demon fox, you piece of shit." Whatever Naruto had expected, this wasn't it. "Huh?" he said. His surprise even managed to dull the pain. "But, the Kyuubi is dead." The Kyuubi was killed by the fourth Hokage. Iruka-sensei taught it in class. "No, you fool. He couldn't kill it, so he sealed it in human form." "You." The ninja laughed again. "The third Hokage took pity on you and let you live. He may have forgiven you, but the rest of us haven't. Even your precious Iruka-sensei hates you. He was orphaned in the attack, before his very eyes. Both his parents took injuries from you that killed them. He wound up alone because of you. He tries, but he cannot bring himself to forgive you. Like him, there are countless others who wish for your end. That is why you will never be accepted by anyone in this village. Your dream that you shout about all day, the one where you will become Hokage? It is never going to happen. All of the village hates you. You will never be Hokage. You should just die and leave this village in peace." He started making hand seals and started to move closer to Naruto. "Die, demon." Naruto tried to crawl away, but he knew that he would not be able to get away this time. His mind was in shambles. Was the ninja telling the truth? If he was, it would explain the villagers' treatment of him all his life, but he couldn't remember anything about attacking the village. He looked up right as the ninja was about to blow fire from his mouth and end Naruto's small existence. Try as he might, Naruto couldn't bring himself to close his eyes and wait for his end. A small voice in his mind said that it would be the act of a coward. Naruto stiffened. He may be a lot of things, but he was not a coward. Suddenly, his teacher's face jerked up as he was punched by an animal-masked ninja that appeared out of nowhere and the fire jutsu sailed into the night sky. Surprised, Naruto saw that 3 more masked ninja dropped down from the trees. One of them touched his teacher on the back of his neck and the Chunin dropped like a ton of bricks. Naruto watched in awe at the ease with which another masked ninja tied up the offender. All this happened in a span of 4 seconds. Naruto couldn't believe his eyes. These were Anbu, feared both inside and outside the village. These were the elite of even the elite. One of them with long purple hair turned towards him and started walking up to him. Naruto felt fear taking over again as he struggled to get away. The Anbu's hand was glowing a weird color of green. Naruto had never seen that before. The Anbu reached out its hand and Naruto flinched, but suddenly the pain in his neck seemed to lessen as it came in contact with the green hand. The Anbu moved from one injury to another. Naruto was busy looking at the healing process and missed the signals the other Anbu was passing each other. What's the next step? The crane-shaped mask Anbu signaled. Put prisoner in a cell, file report. The leader signaled back. Priority? Bird asked. The leader glanced at the pair by the tree where Sparrow was healing the boy. It wasn't required of her, she could have just transported him to the hospital, but she was a rookie and hadn't become as detached as was advised for Anbu. The boy looked like he would make a full recovery in a few days. Non-urgent. Level 3. He signaled to the crane. Non-urgent? Confirm please. Hokage cares for the subject. Crane offered back. Confirm. Disturbing the third now is avoidable, but inadvisable to delay later than 900 hours tomorrow. The leader decided after thinking. He looked up to see Sparrow return. He glanced over her shoulder and saw the child still lying under the tree. She nodded. The leader's eyes, hidden inside his mask, met the blue of the child as he cast a genjutsu for sleep. He watched the child's eyelids close. The leader signaled and the squad vanished together with their bound prisoner. Naruto woke up an hour later. He felt uncomfortable. Then he realized he wasn't in his house. He smelled the dirt and slowly opened his eyes. An unusual scene met his eyes and reminded Naruto of the incident that had occurred little over an hour ago. Memories of the fight came back to him, along with what the teacher had told him. Naruto lay on the ground, thinking furiously. He felt the shakes return as sleep left his body. The full weight of what he had been told hit him. He was a demon. He had killed hundreds of this village's people, and for that he was hated. No one in this village would recognize him as a ninja. For a long time, all Naruto had wanted was to gain acceptance from the villagers. Now, he knew it was not possible. Sooner or later someone else would try to kill him, and might succeed. He was not strong enough to fight off ninja. Tears rolled off his face as Naruto lay in the dirt. Naruto closed his eyes as he came to a gut-wrenching conclusion. He opened his eyes and said to himself, his voice shaking. I have to leave the village. Naruto slowly made his way out of the woods. He was still feeling phantom pain from the burns. Between the kind Anbu and his fast healing, he had all but recovered. A night of rest would be enough for him to be back to a 100%. But it was not an option. He had to leave tonight. Even though the masked ninjas had taken the crazy ninja away, Naruto couldn't be sure he wouldn't be back in the academy tomorrow. Naruto would have to leave before dawn. This line of thought brought a new dilemma to Naruto's mind. If he ran away, Hokage Gigi was sure to send someone after him. He knew that the people who ran away from their villages were killed. It was one of the few things he had paid attention to in the academy lessons. He didn't realize that he wasn't a ninja yet, so couldn't be a Nukenin. To avoid any pursuers he would have to go far away, but he didn't have any money. He was given enough for food and groceries, but he had spent most of it. Even if he hadn't, Naruto was sure he would need a lot more than what he had. Naruto mused as he jumped from rooftop to rooftop. Suddenly, Naruto realized that, in his thoughts, he had come back to his teacher's house instead of going home. He was about to turn back when a thought struck him. He turned and watched his teacher's apartment. If he was running away, he couldn't get into any more trouble if he borrowed some stuff from the hateful teacher. The window to the ninja's apartment was still open. It was splashed in the orange color from his trap. The sight of his teacher covered in orange, spluttering brought a small grin to his face. It went as quickly as it had come when he remembered what his teacher had told him. He had been forced to read, about the Kyuubi's attack in the history books. Even he had been surprised at the devastation that the book had described. If he was the Kyuubi, he should have remembered doing something like that. Naruto was pretty sure that if he did what had been described in the books, he would remember it. His bastard of a teacher had told him that the fourth had sealed the Kyuubi. He didn't know a lot about sealing. All he knew was that it allowed the use of awesome things such as exploding tags and chakra-activating triggers that he used. Maybe his memory had somehow got lost when the fourth had sealed him. Naruto felt a growing sense of guilt towards the village. Even in his predicament, he felt for the poor villagers who had lost dear ones to him. Naruto would never know, even in the future, that it was this habit of his, putting others before himself, that brought him so many friends over the years. Finally, after a few silent minutes, Naruto shook his head and cleared his mind. He needed to think fast. He jumped into the empty apartment and closed the window behind him. He didn't want any random ninja accidentally getting a look inside and see him. Naruto turned and saw that the apartment was quite bigger than his own. In fact, the room he was standing in was bigger than his small living room kitchen dining room combined. He looked under the bed and was rewarded with a sturdy-looking backpack. It was standard shinobi issue, to be used on missions. He opened it to see that it already contained quite a few supplies that he would need. He laid them all out on the floor. He let his eyes glide over the objects. He could see a small water bottle, a sleeping bag, a blanket, some rolls of ninja wire, a hair trap, a small pan, utensils and a compass. He still needed something to light a fire with. His teacher obviously didn't need one as he could just use small fire jutsus. He would also need money. For that, Naruto felt, he would have to look around. Naruto began looking around in the bedside closet. He found what he was looking for in the bottom drawer, a battered purse that had seen better days. Naruto emptied its contents into Gamma-chan. As he was putting back the purse, his eye fell on a little hole in the base of the drawer. Naruto recognized it for a finger hold to lift the false bottom in the drawer. He had one in his drawer as well. He kept his scrolls in there, the ones Hokage Gigi had given him over the years. He felt sad over this as he wouldn't be going back to his apartment now. As soon as he got enough, he would leave. Naruto's eyes watered as he fought to keep tears at bay. He had promised himself when he was little that he wouldn't cry over small things. He lifted the contents of the drawer out of the wardrobe and removed the false bottom. Inside were some more rolls of cash, a few scrolls and a loose paper. Naruto picked up the paper and turned it over. It seemed a sort of a quickly scribbled note. Naruto read its contents. "I've managed to copy you a few jutsu scrolls. Remember, learn them and destroy them. If anyone found out that I copied forbidden jutsu, I'd find my ass handed to Ibiki sooner than you could say, Hokage. Maybe these will help you pass your Junin exams. Kami knows you've failed enough times. Chizu." Naruto looked at the scrolls neatly packed in the hidden space. These were super strong jutsus and from the looks of it, his teacher wasn't supposed to have them. Naruto thought deeply. Until now, he hadn't thought beyond running away. But now, he was forced to ponder on the future. Even after he ran away, he would have to get stronger to fend for himself. Naruto decided that he would take these scrolls and learn them later, when he managed to learn to use Chitara for jutsu. He picked them up and placed them with the other items on the floor. He decided that he would need a few other items such as kunai and shuriken as well. He spent the next 10 minutes searching for the items. Finally, after an hour, Naruto was ready. He slung the bag over his back and made his way to the window. A steel glint caught his eye. On a hook next to the window, hung a Hite 8. Naruto had wanted one ever since he could remember. The shiny metal and the band was proof of being a village's ninja. It was an acknowledgement of the existence of the ones who wore it. His hands reached for the navy blue cloth. Just as he was about to take it off the hook on the wall, his teacher's face flashed in his mind. His hand stopped. Did he want the Hite 8 of the man who tried to kill him? No, Naruto decided. The man was not worthy enough for Naruto to wear his second-hand Hite 8. Naruto moved to the window, opened it and jumped out. Naruto had thought about leaving a note for the Hokage. After the man had treated him with kindness all his life, Naruto felt bad leaving without a small goodbye and thank you letter. He knew the Hokage Jiji would be surprised to see Naruto taking the trouble to write anything, but it was the least Naruto could do. But Naruto also knew that the Hokage's mansion was always surrounded by the masked Anbu. He may fool the lower-level ninja like Chunin, but he couldn't yet get around the elite of the elite, the Anbu. He would be caught and then either thrown in a cell or brought in front of the Hokage Jiji. Either way, he would be unable to leave. So he decided to instead leave the note for the Hokage with the note for Iruka-sensei at the Chunin's house. He turned to the direction of the house of the kind teacher. Iruka-sensei had once made him carry test papers to his house as punishment for playing a prank in class. Later, he had treated Naruto to ramen for the very first time. Naruto still remembered the apartment, it was near Ichiraku Ramen. Naruto reached the apartment and deposited the notes behind the potted plants that his teacher kept on his windows. "Goodbye, Iruka-sensei," Naruto whispered as he jumped off again. Naruto stealthily made his way to the Great Wall surrounding and protecting Konoha. It took Naruto some time to manage to climb the narrow spiral of stairs that was used by the repairmen or the non-ninja population of Konoha to climb to the top of the wall. It had become cloudy and the moon was completely hidden behind the gray clouds. Naruto ran on top of the wall towards the main gates. As he reached them, all he needed to do now was to jump from the wall to the trees outside. Naruto stopped in the shadows. He turned to look at his village one last time. His life here had not been a happy one. He had cried himself to sleep for so many times that he had lost count. The clouds shifted for a bit and the moon shone briefly. Naruto's eyes went to the Hokage monument. 4 faces stared back at him, their gaze unflinching. Naruto felt a little guilty as he looked at the faces of the great leaders of his village. Maybe it was a trick of the light or Naruto's own feelings, but their faces almost looked sad. Naruto couldn't help but feel that he had failed them. They had never run from their battles. 3 of them had fought to their last breaths, and had never backed down. Tears threatened at his eyes. He had wanted to become like them. In the beginning, it had been his attempt to gain recognition, but later when he had been forced to read about them by Iruka-sensei, and told their stories by Hokage Jiji, he had wanted to become like them for different reasons. Now, he was running away, like a coward. His restraint broke as he started to sob. "I am sorry," he wheezed between his sobs. No reply came. "I'm not L like you guys Ttebao. I'm still a little kid. I'm not as strong." He sniffed, tears overflowing his face. "I'm sorry, Datbao." His shoulders sagged as he turned. Lightning shone in the sky, illuminating the corner where Naruto had been standing, now empty. The following thunder made the Hokage grumble as he woke up. It started raining heavily. As another lightning flashed across the sky, the Hokage glanced out of his window at the Hokage monument as he rose to close his window and then stared. For the briefest of moments, it had seemed as if the face of the 4th had been crying. Naruto was exhausted and hurting. Running away had seemed like a good idea 3 days ago. Now, he was lost in an unknown land, hungry from not eating for 2 days. He had gotten wet in the heavy downpour the night he had left and was pretty sure that he was sick. Usually, a few hours of rest was all it took for him to get better. Maybe because he was a demon, he thought. Naruto sneezed. He hadn't had time to rest as he had been running non-stop to get out of the reach of the faster, elite tracker ninja. He was convinced that his head would burst. He could hardly keep his eyes open. He had run towards Earth Country hoping that Konoha would not send its ninja into enemy territory to look for him. He had steered away from towns and villages after the last time he had run away to shake his pursuers off. The sun on his back made his throat parched. He stumbled and fell down, the weight of his rucksack almost crushing him. He didn't have the strength to pick himself up. For the first time since his flight from Konoha, Naruto slept. The pain in his head woke him up. He felt someone take his bag off his back. He tried to grab his bag when he heard a gentle voice as he was turned on his back. "Don't worry, I am only trying to help you." Naruto tried to open his eyes but the effort increased the pain, so he gave up after he managed to open them for a second. He saw a gentle face with long black hair. The last thing he heard was the person call out to someone. "We should help him, Zabuza-sama." Then he passed out. The morning was bright and cheerful. The rain the night before had freshened everything up and had cooled down the weather. The smell of the wet soil and the flowers filled the air. In spite of this, the Hokage was feeling ill at ease. His night had not been restful. After he had closed his windows and returned to his empty bed, his dreams had been plagued by visions of the crying stone face of his successor on the Hokage monument. During the dream, the stone face turned into the fourth's real face, crying. Then the dreamscape changed into the scene he had found in the aftermath of the Kyuubi's attack on that fateful night a decade ago. He followed his dream self into the scene that occasionally haunted his nightmares. After the barrier surrounding the area vanished and his dream self rushed in, both Sarutobi had known what they would find. Still, his old current self followed his 10 years younger dream self into the clearing. In the middle, laid three figures: a newborn baby and his dead parents. Hizurin fell to his knees as his dream self rushed to the baby. Hizurin didn't need to watch what was happening. He remembered it all too well. The next few hours were burned into his mind for as long as he was alive. Flashback. Hizurin reached the baby. The infant was crying, probably unnerved by the process of the sealing and the evil aura that hung in the air, even though the great beast was sealed. Hizurin's eyes watered as his eyes flicked to the body of his successor, bloody and bruised. His eyes shifted to Kushina. Both of them lay dead, their blood soaking the ground, flowing freely from the large wound in their torso. Kushina and Minato lay on either side of their child. It was obvious to him that the child was Minato and Kushina's. He had his mother's face, slightly round, and his father's hair and eyes. Blue eyes like the open sky, pure and kind. On his belly, drawn in his father's blood, superimposing the seal formed by the jutsu, was the seal that had sealed the greatest biju known to man. Both parents had one hand on their child and the other around their spouse. They looked so beautiful, despite all the blood and sweat. They looked like a family sleeping together. Hizurin was surprised as his mask broke and he sobbed. Cruel fate had ripped this small family apart even before they had the chance to become one. His shoulders shook as he fought to control his feelings. He remembered how excited Minato had been to become a father, asking him for advice on many little things. He could see Kushina rubbing her belly lovingly as she crooned to the unborn baby. Back then, Hizurin had chuckled that the baby was going to be the most loved baby in the village, being the adored Hokage's son. Now, that future had been lost as the baby lay crying, next to his dead parents. Now, with all that love stolen away, the baby was all alone in this world, bearing on his small shoulders a burden so heavy that most grown ninja would run away from. He was all that stood between the demon and the village. Sarutobi created 2 shadow clones to pick up the fallen shinobi. He watched as his clones gently picked up their respective charges. He picked up the baby himself. He turned to the shinobi who had followed him and were standing a little distance behind him, giving him some space. "We are going back to the village. As soon as we reach it, find all the surviving members of the council and inform them that I am issuing summons for an emergency council meeting. They are to head to the tower immediately. Tell them nothing more. What we saw here is classified as Hokage eyes only," he commanded. All the shinobi nodded. Sarutobi continued, "I am taking the child and the bodies of the fourth and his wife. I will take them to the Hokage tower. One of you head to the hospital and bring a nurse that they can spare. After that, inform the shinobi masses that the Kyuubi has been defeated and all able ninja are to start the stabilizing effort. Now, depart." He waved his hand to his side in a quick motion. All the shinobi yelled, "Hi," and jumped off, kicking dust and leaves into the air as they left. Flashback end. Sarutobi returned to the present as he reached his office in the Hokage tower. His Anbu standing guard at the doors saluted him. He nodded to them as he walked inside. He went and sat behind his desk and sighed. He disliked days like these when he felt his age. He may be the Hokage, but he was also a weary old man. Ever since he had returned to office after Minato's death a decade ago, he had started to get tired easily. After the village had stabilized, a year later, Sarutobi had tried to find a replacement. He had sent messages to both his students and both had turned him down. He knew that Danzo would have jumped at the opportunity, but Sarutobi also knew that he wasn't an option. Nara Shikaku had said that he wasn't powerful enough and didn't portray the image of a fearsome leader and turned down the Hokage politely. Even Hizurin had to agree. Even if Minato had been easygoing, he had been feared like none other in the ninja world, keeping future enemies in check. His only option was to remain in office as long as possible, until a worthy successor emerged. Hitaki Kakashi was one to look out for, but he wasn't ready yet. Maybe in 5-6 years. He was currently serving in the Anbu, carrying on a long family tradition. Uchiha Itachi had also caught Hizuren's eye. The will of fire burned bright in the young man, but the sacrifice Itachi had made 1.5 years ago had removed him from the equation. Before leaving, the young Uchiha had promised to protect the village from the outside. Hizuren sighed. If not for that incident, Itachi would have been ready to take up the mantle of the Hokage as the sixth, by the time one of his replacements stepped down, preferably Jiraiya. He had long since given up on Tsunade. Also, Itachi being primed for Hokage would have pacified the Uchiha. Hizuren fought the feeling to sigh again as he sensed incoming ninja. He looked up as the Anbu appeared in front of his desk and kneeled. Sarutobi's eyes narrowed and his heart skipped a beat as he recognized the Anbu. He was the one that delivered Anbu Level 3 reports. Maybe his instincts had been right. He held out his hand to receive the scroll. He unrolled it with trepidation. His eyes widened as he read the report. He looked up from the scroll to the kneeling Anbu. "Summon Dog and his team," he ordered. The prostrate Anbu nodded. "Also, I want an update on the prisoner. If he is awake, hand him over to Ibiki-kun. Tell him I want complete details of what happened." The Anbu saluted and vanished in a blur. Sarutobi pressed the buzzer on his desk. In a few seconds, his assistant walked in. She bowed in greeting and awaited her orders after straightening. "Call the Junin in charge of the academy, Ichizu Chizu, to my office immediately," he ordered. "Hi, Hokage-sama." The assistant turned and walked out to carry out the orders. Hizuren leaned back into his chair as he waited for his orders to be carried out. Ichizu would have to be told as this affected the academy. The prisoner was not likely to return to the academy for the foreseeable future. Sarutobi would talk to Naruto before the sentencing. Either way, he was going to jail for a few years at the least, for using a deadly jutsu on a civilian. If he remembered correctly, Ichizu and the prisoner used to be on the same genin team. Maybe he would have an insight into the behavior of the other man. Sarutobi closed his eyes and hoped Naruto wasn't too traumatized by the attempt on his life. Things were getting out of hand. Naruto wasn't safe alone. Hizuren decided that he would take the boy into his home as he had originally wanted. His mind wandered to the council meeting a decade ago. Naruto's fate had been decided. Flashback. Hizuren waited in the meeting room as the council members filtered in slowly. They bowed to him and looked around, probably searching for Minato. Most of them looked untouched by the battle that had taken place. Only the head of the Hyuga, Inuzuka, Uchiha and Akamichi looked like they had been part of the battle. But then, Aburame rarely looked anything other than clean and calm. Hizuren was searching for his dear friend, the head of the Nara house, when his eyes fell on a black ponytail. Black, not gray as he had been looking for. Sitting in the seat of the Nara clan instead of his father, was Nara Shikaku. The young man had a long gash from his forehead to the side of his face, barely stitched up. His presence in the meeting could only mean one thing. His father, Nara Shikamen, had fallen. Their eyes met and Hizuren passed a silent message of condolence that the young man accepted. The doors opened again as his old teammates and Danzo entered. Sarutobi saw that Danzo noticed the absence of the fourth and slightly straightened, realizing what it meant. His right hand was in a sling, wrapped with fresh, bloody bandages. It seemed he too had fought, unlike the other two. As soon as everyone sat down in their seats, Sarutobi cleared his throat as he stood. Instantly, the room fell silent. Sarutobi began to speak. "As all of you know, our village was attacked this night by the Kyuubi. The demon wreaked great havoc and a lot of lives have been lost, both civilian and shinobi." The members of the council all nodded solemnly. "But the danger has now passed. The Kyuubi was defeated by the fourth." Sarutobi was speaking when murmurs broke out in the council. Inuzuka Shiga asked, "Where is the fourth? Is he trying to make a fur coat out of the fox?" He joked. A few members laughed at this. Sarutobi raised a hand. The room fell silent again. "As I was saying, the Kyuubi was defeated by the fourth, at the cost of his and his wife's lives." Sarutobi looked at the council somberly. Those who hadn't guessed this already gasped. The Inuzuka clan head hung his head shame-faced. The Aburame clan head asked after a few seconds, "How did it happen? I did not know that the tailed beasts could be killed. Did the fourth teleport the demon far away?" Other members looked at the Aburame and then at the third. "You are right. Biju can't be killed by humans. The fourth used a sealing jutsu called the Shiki Fuin. The jutsu summoned the Shinigami, who in exchange for the fourth's soul, sealed the Kyuubi into a baby. Sarutobi recalled what Minato had told him about the jutsu some time ago. Danzo asked a question that the third had not anticipated. Who is this baby? The old war hawk's eyes narrowed. Sarutobi could see that Danzo was already trying to make plans to use the child as a weapon. In this moment, Sarutobi made a decision that he would come to regret later. I do not know, he responded. When I found him, he was on the ceremonial throne used in Hake Fuin with the seal drawn on him by the fourth. What of the Kyuubi? Is it no more? Homura asked. Sarutobi sighed as he shook his head. No, it still exists, only it is now sealed inside the boy. From what I remember the fourth telling me, the demon's life is now tied to the child's. What is to be done with it? Kaharu asked. It? Sarutobi asked. I don't understand. I meant the demon child. Kaharu replied. If he houses the demon, he should be imprisoned, or killed so that he can never release the beast on Konoha again. Some others nodded in agreement. Sarutobi stared at his old teammate. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. How could they even consider killing a little baby who was the savior of their village? He was about to ask them this when he received help from an unexpected corner. No, Danzo said, his tone carrying a tone of finality. Sarutobi and the others stared at the old man. The council because they were surprised by Danzo's command, for it couldn't be thought of as anything other than one. Not even the Hokage ever commanded the council, even though he could. Sandame always talked and reasoned. Hizurin was surprised because Danzo never agreed with him. The baby is a great weapon. We cannot waste it away. As long as it is used correctly, the other nations will not dare to go against Konoha. Danzo continued. Sarutobi sighed. Of course, Danzo didn't care about the boy, but only about the weapon he had the potential to become. Kaharu and Homura thought for a moment and then nodded in agreement. Sarutobi shook his head. He is not a weapon, Shimura. He is a child of this village. He countered. Then it is his duty to protect his village. Danzo replied unfazed. Sarutobi and Danzo entered a staring match. They were interrupted by a slow drawl saying, he is still a baby now. We can always decide this idea later on. What we need to decide right now is where will the child be raised. Everyone turned to see the young new head of the Nara clan speaking. Sarutobi and Danzo nodded. Kaharu asked, can we find out who the child is? Hizurin thought about his options. He could come clean or lie again. He decided to lie by omission. Before Kushina died, she had informed me that the child's name was going to be Naruto. So I guess his name is Uzumaki Naruto. He noticed the slight widening of the eyes of Nara Shikaku before his face became impassive. No one else caught this. Sarutobi cursed inwardly as he realized that Minato had been friends with the Nara and had most likely told him about the name chosen for his child. He waited for Shikaku to voice some questions. None came. Danzo, however, did have questions. Uzumaki? The clan from the land of Whirlpool? Isn't that the clan from which the fourth's wife hailed? He asked. Sarutobi was thinking on how to answer without cornering himself when Shikaku spoke. I believe the fourth told me that a very distant relative of his wife had arrived to get medical help. She herself was about to give birth. Maybe the boy is her child. The Nara clan had lied smoothly. Sarutobi glanced towards the son of his friend and smiled. Shikaku had subtly informed him that he stood by the Hokage. He had provided Sarutobi with a way out, and he himself had never said anything concrete, just vague assumptions which could be taken for mistakes later, when and if Naruto's true parentage had to be revealed. Is that so? Sarutobi acted his part. I believe that settles your query, Danzo. Now, I think this meeting is over. I need to go and make arrangements for the child. Quote, what arrangements, if I may ask Hokage-sama? The Hyuga clan had asked. Others looked at the Hokage expectantly. I am planning to take the child into my home and raise him. Sarutobi answered. Danzo frowned at this. I don't think that is a good idea. The Hokage taking in the demon child will cause an uproar among the shinobi. For the next half an hour, Sarutobi argued with the council over this. But in the end he gave in to the popular demand. At this juncture, Shikaku offered to take the child in. As all of you know, the Nara clan grounds are in remote location of Konoha. Far enough from the center of the village should anything go wrong. I have also just become a father a month ago. I can easily take him into my home. My wife will welcome him with open arms and my child would have some company." The Uchiha clan head disagreed at this point. "No, I cannot allow another clan to gain the power of the Kyuubi. If he grows in your clan, he will become loyal to your clan like your other clan members." This started another discussion with the other clans also disagreeing to allow any other clan the power of the Kyuubi. Sarutobi tried to explain that the child was not a weapon, but a defenseless child. In the heat of the discussion, however, his voice fell on deaf ears. Danzo finally suggested that the child be brought up independently like other orphans. Sarutobi finally agreed and the meeting ended. Flashback end. Sarutobi sighed as he remembered. He was definitely not in a good frame of mind today. The visions in his nightmares had disturbed him greatly. He was still trying to break out of the slump he was in when the Anbu he had summoned arrived. Sarutobi looked at the captain of the squad, the Anbu wearing the dog mask, telltale silver hair visible over the porcelain mask. All 4 Anbu kneeled, the captain a few steps in front of his squad. "I read your report, but it didn't have anything on the current condition of Naruto-kun," Sarutobi said as he took a puff from his wooden pipe. The Anbu captain nodded as he understood what his leader wanted to know and began in a nondescript voice used by most Anbu. "After we apprehended the ninja, Sparrow healed most of the major wounds that needed attention and gave the boy a sedative so that he would sleep until the morning. I put him under a sleep genjutsu as well." Dog finished his report. Sarutobi gave a short nod of appreciation to the violet-haired rookie. "And?" Sarutobi prompted. "That is all, Sandame-sama." Dog replied. "I mean to ask, did you transfer him to the hospital or his house?" The Hokage clarified his query. "Neither, Sandame-sama. As I said, we gave him a sedative to let him sleep." Dog answered. Sarutobi gave the Anbu a slightly incredulous look. "Are you trying to tell me that you left an injured 10-year-old unconscious, right next to the forest of death?" he asked slowly. Any inferior ninja would have fidgeted, but Dog remained impassive, displaying the infamous Anbu control. However, he did take a few moments to reply in an affirmative. Then he turned slightly to his squad and flashed a few quick signals to the crane-masked Anbu. Crane nodded and left in a blur. Sarutobi resisted the impulse to pinch the bridge of his nose. Sometimes, even the geniuses acted like fools. He hoped that Crane would find a safe and peacefully sleeping Naruto. Sarutobi moved on to the second thing he had wanted to ask the Anbu. "Your report didn't mention anything about whether the prisoner had mentioned the forbidden knowledge to Naruto-kun." The Hokage asked slowly. The Anbu stayed silent for some time, trying to recall something useful. "I do not know, Hokage-sama," he said finally. "Although I did hear the prisoner call the boy, demon, but," the Anbu left the rest of his sentence unsaid. Sarutobi understood what his Anbu had been about to say, but the boy is called a demon normally, too. Sarutobi felt saddened, because in his heart he knew that it was his leniency over the years that had led to this incident. If he had dealt with the prior, smaller instances of violence against Naruto with a strong hand, this incident would not have come to pass. He had let his compassion for those who had lost at the hands of the Kyuubi cloud his judgment. Sarutobi straightened as he came to a decision. No more. It had been enough time for the village to get over their loss. When Crane came back with Naruto, he would have Naruto's belongings moved to his mansion and he would tell Naruto that the boy was going to live with the Hokage from now on. The dog Anbu noticed the hardening of the features of the Hokage. He could guess what the old man was thinking about. He stayed silent in his spot until he saw the Hokage gesturing him to come stand by his side as the old man walked over to the large window that gave a view of the village. He stood and walked over to Sarutobi. Sarutobi started to speak softly. "I think that it is not safe for Naruto-kun to live alone anymore. Even if he doesn't show it, he is greatly affected by these incidents. This time, he could have died. It must have been a very traumatizing experience. He needs to be able to feel safe. He needs to be with someone who cares for him." Sarutobi spoke as he gazed over his village. The Anbu hoped the Hokage wasn't going where he thought the Hokage was going with this. He spoke softly, but without using the neutral, Anbu voice. "I know that I wanted to take him into my house back then, but now that I am in the Anbu, it is not advisable. It is not that I don't want him, but I don't go back to my house anymore, Sandame-sama. I have taken up a room in the Anbu lodgings, inside the headquarters. He managed to speak out before the Hokage chuckled. You misunderstand me, Kakashi-kun. I mean to take him in myself. I am just asking your opinion on whether I should bother informing the others or not. The old man continued to chuckle. The Anbu stared at Sarutobi for a while before he said, the council will not like this. He offered. The old man gave him a mischievous smile. I know. However, this time I do not intend to entertain their protests. Then I believe whether you tell them or not does not matter. The Anbu said, with a hint of a smile in his voice. Sarutobi smiled. The Hokage and the Anbu stood silently for a while, looking out of the window, until Sarutobi asked, what of the prisoner? The Anbu returned to his Anbu voice and reported, he was handed over to the T&I department's Ibiki as per your orders. I expect Ibiki will have a report within the hour. Dog had just finished speaking when Crane returned. Sarutobi frowned as he saw that Crane was alone. Why didn't you bring Naruto-kun with you? He asked his shinobi. The crane-masked Anbu bowed his head and answered, I am sorry, Sandame-sama, but I was unable to find Uzumaki Naruto. The Hokage and Dog both looked down at Crane as Sarutobi asked, what do you mean you were unable to find him? Was he not there? I am afraid so, Hokage-sama. When I reached the area, he was no longer there. He paused for a second and then started again, only slower. I assumed that he might have woken up and gone home, but when I went to his apartment, I found it locked. He looked up to see that the Hokage had started to frown at the information. He continued, the bed did not look slept in, Sandame-sama. I did not know where else he could be, so I returned for further instructions. Crane finished. Sarutobi's heart had started beating faster halfway into the report. The image of the crying stone face of the Yondaime flashed in his mind. He saw the squad captain stiffen. He threw his fears to the back of his mind as he ordered his Anbu captain. Take 3 more squads and begin searching immediately. Start in the Forest of Death. Return with any news you find. All the Anbu nodded and disappeared in blurs. Sarutobi closed his eyes and prayed for the safety of the boy. Meanwhile, Amino Iruka was hurrying over to the Hokage tower. He had woken up late in the morning, making good use of his vacation. After finishing his morning routine, he had gone to water his plants when he saw the envelopes. He had recognized the handwriting on the envelope as that of the little prankster, Naruto. At first he had believed it to be a prank and had used every trap scanning technique known to him. Finally satisfied, he had opened the letter. What he had found was a goodbye letter. To Iruka-sensei. I am sorry for all the trouble I gave you so many times, sensei. I now know that I am the Kyuubi that killed your parents. I am sorry for all the pain I caused you. You are the one of the few people other than the Hokage Jiji that was kind to me, even though I took away your family and made you lonely, like I am. I know that being lonely really hurts. So, I am sorry. I can't stay here, somebody might kill me. I am going away so that I will not cause any more pain to the other people whose family I killed, even though I don't remember it. I am taking some stuff from this bad guy's place. I will send you the money later when I get some. Tell him that Uzumaki Naruto is not a thief. I am just borrowing the stuff. I will always remember all the times you treated me to ramen. Those are my happiest memories. Uzumaki Naruto. Ninja Academy, 2nd year. P.S. I couldn't go to the tower, so if it is not much trouble, could you give Gigi the second envelope? Iruka stared at the letter dumbfounded. Naruto knew about the demon? Or the way it looked like, he thought he was the demon. He reread the letter. Naruto was leaving the village? Iruka suddenly leapt out of his window and started to run towards the tower as fast as he could. Sarutobi was sitting in his office, trying not to imagine the worst-case scenario when his secretary entered with Ichizu Chizu behind her. She bowed and left. Ichizu walked up to the desk and greeted his Hokage. Good morning, Hokage-sama. You called? Yes, Ichizu-kun. I am afraid I have something to discuss with you. It's about your genin teammate, the one who teaches at the academy. Ichizu stiffened a little. He wondered if they had found out the copies of the forbidden jutsus. He hoped that his friend had the sense to burn his note at least. What is it, Hokage-sama? He asked, bracing himself. He has been arrested for the attempted murder of a civilian. Sarutobi replied, taking a puff from his pipe. Ichizu was surprised. His friend had tried to kill a civilian? Was it a drunken brawl, Hokage-sama? He never could hold his liquor. I'm sure he is sorry for his actions. Ichizu tried to make a case for his friend. I am afraid it is more serious than that, Ichizu-kun. He tried to kill a civilian while in full control of his faculties. Hokage informed the Junin somberly. Who did he try to kill, Hokage-sama? Asked Ichizu, trying to wonder why would his friend try to kill a civilian on purpose. His student, Uzumaki Naruto. Sarutobi replied as he took a closer look to watch for any body language change. He was not disappointed. On hearing the name, Ichizu visibly relaxed and his eyes took on a cold look as he sneered. The demon brat. He spat. Yes, Naruto-kun, the Hokage said dangerously. The fact that Naruto was missing had already got the Hokage riled up. This open mention of the boy as a demon worked to further infuriate the old ninja. But then, Ichizu tried to begin but the Hokage cut him off. But what, Ichizu? Are you trying to say that because it was Naruto-kun, it is all right? Sarutobi asked, his voice heavy with fury. The Junin seemed to understand the position he was in and tried to think of a suitable reply when another teacher from the academy, Iruka, if his memory served him right, jumped in from the window. It was obvious that the young man was harried about something. He had probably heard about his coworker and had come to protest. The Hokage turned to see a very agitated Iruka stand up and hurry towards him. I am sorry for the sudden intrusion, Hokage-sama, but I think you need to see this. Iruka handed over the open letter to the Hokage. Sarutobi took the extended paper and started to read it. His eyes widened as he read the piece of paper. Then he took the sealed envelope from the Chunin and tore it open. He found a similar letter addressed to him. To Old Man Hokage, I am sorry for all the trouble I caused you for a long time. I know that I am the Kyuubi that killed all those people many years ago. I also know that you took pity on me back then and let me live. I am very thankful for that. I am also very thankful for all the times you got me out of trouble and didn't punish me. I know that you must also hate me for the people I have killed, but I am thankful for all the times you were kind to me. For me, you are the family I never had, like a kind old grandpa who loves his grandson very much. Your kindness was enough for me to want to live. I am going to go away. I am sorry for running away, but I am scared that you will not be able to stop everyone who tries to kill me. Someone might succeed. I know that those who abandon their village have to be chased and killed. I will not be sad if you send people after me to kill me, because I know that it is the law. I will always remember the stories you told me about all the other three great Hokage. I will always try to become someone you could be proud of, like them. Uzumaki Naruto. P.S. I think you should know something. It's in the envelope. The Hokage picked up his envelope again and saw another piece of paper in it. He was about to take it out when the door opened and Morino Ibiki walked in, holding a file. Ichizu looked at the T&I vice captain and gave him a nod, which the man returned. Sarutobi held up a hand for Ibiki to wait as he took out the second piece of paper and read it. Then he motioned Ibiki to come closer and read it, which the bandana-wearing man did. Sarutobi turned to Ichizu and said as he passed him the paper, "Looks like you were right about not being able to say, Hokage, Ichizu-kun." Ichizu paled as he saw his note he had written to his friend. He felt a hand on his shoulder to see Ibiki smiling at him. He was about to make a run for it when his world went blank. As soon as Ibiki left with the unconscious man over his shoulder, the Hokage called out, "Boar!" Immediately, a boar-masked Anbu appeared in front of the old man. "Assemble all available Anbu. Recall the teams searching in the Forest of Death. Call Nara Shikaku to my office immediately," Sarutobi ordered brusquely. The Anbu nodded and disappeared. Sarutobi turned to see Iruka reading the letter Naruto had given for the Hokage. Iruka looked up with fear in his eyes. "Are you really going to send Hunter Nin after him, Hokage-sama? He is just a child," he asked, his voice dangerously close to breaking. Sarutobi shook his head and replied, "No, Iruka-kun. Naruto is not a ninja, so he cannot be pursued as a Nukenin. Even if he was, I don't think we have the right to send out Hunter Nins, after knowing the reason for his flight." Quote, Iruka noticed the Hokage's eyes seemed moist as he looked out of the window, onto the village. "I failed him, Iruka-kun. A boy his age, forced to flee for fear of his life, from my villagers. I have failed him." The Hokage spoke, his voice gravelly. "We all have, Hokage-sama. Iruka cut in, he too on the verge of tears. I thought that treating him to ramen once in a while was enough. I should have paid more attention to his loneliness. I knew that the others hated him. Maybe if I had. Don't blame yourself, Iruka-kun. You did not have any control of the situation, but I, as Hokage, have no excuse. I could have overruled the council any time I wanted, but I let my compassion for the villagers blind me to the injustices faced by Naruto. It is me who failed to protect him, Sarutobi said as he gazed to the Hokage monument. Then he said more to himself than to anyone else. I wonder if you will forgive me, Yondaime. He sighed as the door opened and Nara Shikaku walked in. Sarutobi pointed to the file Ibiki had left and the letters on his desk. Shikaku sensed the atmosphere and quietly picked up the file. Sarutobi watched as Shikaku's eyes narrowed as he read the report. Shikaku then picked up the letters and read them. His eyes widened as he finished. He turned to see Sarutobi looking at him with pain in his eyes. The Junin commander asked, "What now, Hokage-sama?" "Assemble every available tracking unit. Junin to Genin. I will address them on the roof in 30 minutes. Shikaku nodded and then added, "I'll call other Chunin too, to provide support for the Genin teams." Shikaku bowed and made his way out. It was evident to the villagers that something was going on. Every few minutes or so, groups of shinobi were jumping from rooftop to rooftop, rushing towards the Hokage Tower. Many villagers stopped to watch as even the Genin teams raced down the streets towards the tower. The retired ninja also noticed the sheer number of mission birds circling the village, screeching summons to different shinobi in different tunes. Hence, it was no surprise to most of the council when summons for a council meeting came. Danzo was the last to enter the meeting room as he had been waiting for the root ninja he had deployed to find out the cause of the disturbance. However, none of his agents had managed to find out what was the reason for the tracking teams being called in. So, he had finally been forced to go to the meeting as in the dark as the others. As soon as he entered the room, he saw that Hizarin was in a bad mood. He looked like the man that the ninja world had come to fear as the professor. How long has it been since I saw such fire in his eyes? Danzo thought as he walked to his seat in the corner. It would not be wise to go against Hizarin today, he thought. He sat down and slid back into the shadows. Sarutobi was angry. It was this room full of people who had been responsible for the pain Naruto had felt growing up. Only this room's occupants had initially known about Naruto's status as the demon's jailer, but within a week, most of Konoha had known. He had been angry then, but had let it pass as the event had already occurred. Some faces had changed from back then as the heads of the Aburame, Inuzuka, Hyuga, Akamichi, Yamanaka had changed. However, the politics remained the same. He went and took the high seat he used when he was presiding over council meetings. A hush fell over as he sat down. No one managed to muster the courage to be the first one to say anything. It was obvious to all that the Hokage was furious. It was a rare occurrence and hence unpredictable. Finally, Sarutobi began. As most of you know, shinobi are being mobilized on a big scale. This meeting has been called to let you know why. Most of the clan heads noted the choice of words. The message was clear. This meeting was not a discussion, only a briefing. The civilian members failed to notice. Last night, Sarutobi continued, an attempt was made on Uzumaki Naruto's life by one of our own. This caused a lot of chatter among the council. Save a few, most didn't bother hiding their scorn at the mention of the name. Their mistake. Sarutobi's eyes glinted dangerously as he barked. You have something to say, Yamataro? The man jumped at the tone and mumbled an apology. Homura asked, who was it? An academy teacher who was the victim of a small prank. Sarutobi answered, so he was provoked, said a civilian member. The man wilted under the gaze Sarutobi sent his way. I have been pranked on more number of times than anyone in this room, but I do not remember unleashing fire jutsu on the boy from a distance of 5 meters. Sarutobi growled. He was getting more and more angry as he saw the council trying to make excuses. To let their prejudice justify an attempted murder was a new low, even for them. Nara Shikaku saw the Hokage reaching his boiling point, but unlike usually, he did not interfere. What is to be his punishment? Kaharu asked. She was also observing this unusual fury in the Hokage. I propose a dismissal from duty and a 3-year jail term. Sarutobi looked at his former teammate and smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Do not worry Utatane, this meeting is not his hearing. His punishment has been decided. He not only tried to kill Naruto-kun, but also told him about the Kyuubi. Many council members had shock etched on their faces. The Hokage continued. He will be executed tomorrow morning. An uproar broke out at this announcement, but the Hokage roared, "Silence!" The entire room fell silent as they stared at the Hokage. Never, in their collective memories, had the Hokage ever raised his voice in a council meeting. One young civilian member foolishly tried to argue, but Hokage-sama, execution for attempted murder is too extreme. We cannot allow. You cannot allow? The Hokage interrupted. You cannot allow? He roared and the man flinched. The Hokage stood up from his seat. It seems you all have forgotten your places. It is not you who allow me anything. It is I who allows you everything. I allow you to sit in that seat. Sarutobi started to walk towards the shaking counselor. I allow you to talk to me with an impudence that would have you tortured and killed in Kumo or Iwa. Sarutobi gestured with his hand and instantly, more than a dozen Anbu and the 3 Anbu generals appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the council seats. In fact, I allow you to live, you pompous piece of trash. Sarutobi spat at the man who was now as white as Hokage's robes. All the other council members were shaken as well. The presence of the Anbu was also a bit unnerving. Do not forget, Sarutobi said softly as he looked around the room. I founded the council system to try and address some issues using your views as well. Konoha is a shinobi village. It is not necessary to have a council such as this. It seems that my leniency over the years has allowed you fools to develop an inflated sense of importance. The entire council was so silent that even the rustling of the Hokage's robes was audible. Everyone waited with bated breath as the Hokage made a hand gesture to the Anbu. As one, all the Anbu disappeared. The Hokage passed a hard eye over the entire council. As of this moment, the council is barred from any shinobi decisions. If in the future, I think the council is needed, I may revoke this command. But until then, the council will only deal with civilian matters. Sarutobi spoke softly, but his voice carried perfectly to everyone in the room. I am sending out every available shinobi with tracking abilities to find and bring back Uzumaki Naruto. Once he is back, I will be taking him into my house and protection. Any attack against the boy will be considered as an attack on my family and will be dealt as such. The last time it took you lot a week to spread the details of a confidential meeting. This time I want you to do it by the time Naruto-kun gets back. All of you might want to pray for his safe return, for your futures are closely linked with his. Sarutobi spat at the room and left. The Ninja Academy used many different ways to teach the younger generations. Some of the lessons were taught in the class, some were more practical based and were taught outside. Today, the Ninja Academy second-year students had their practical class. They were waiting for their instructor on the mountain behind the village. From their spot they had a clear view of the village. The sudden increase in shinobi movement had not gone unnoticed by some. A black-haired boy wearing a large coat and sunglasses spoke to no one in particular. It seems some event is afoot. Most of the children around him paid no attention to his observation, but a raven-haired boy with mismatched lengths of eyebrows, courtesy of a certain blonde's explosive notes, looked at him. It had been what the boy had been thinking. He looked back at the figures of ninja making their way towards the Hokage Tower. A lot of ninja are going to the Hokage Tower. He agreed with the sunglasses boy. Many girls giggled at hearing the boy speak. Sasuke didn't bother hiding his disgust as he shook his head. A blonde girl used this chance to enter into a conversation with her crush. Yeah, my dad is on the council and he was summoned too, when I was leaving for the academy. Meetings aren't called this early unless something big happens, she said, smiling sweetly. Sasuke weighed his options. To acknowledge the girl as a part of the conversation would only be inviting problems, but he was curious and the girl seemed to know something. He finally turned to the girl and asked, "So, do you know what's going on?" The girl almost screamed in happiness, but she shook her head as she replied, "No, I left soon after you left." Ino was about to speak further but Sasuke turned away and went to talk to the sunglasses boy. His name was Shino, if she remembered correctly. She frowned and went to join the boys. Sasuke frowned as he sensed the girl following him. He had been afraid of this. Now, the girl would stick to him. But my friend might know, Ino said as she reached them. This made Sasuke and Shino turn to her with raised eyebrows. Ino felt encouraged and she turned and screamed at her friend who was lying on the grass, under a tree. "Oe Shikamaru, get your ass here." Shino and Sasuke shared a look and moved a little away from the loud girl. The ponytailed boy sighed and got up. If he hadn't, he knew the girl would have stomped up to him and disturbed him anyways. To add to his woes, she would have ranted on for quite some time. It was better to fulfill her wishes and then return to his cloud gazing. "What? It is too troublesome to have you yelling at me like that." Shikamaru arrived with his friend, the Akamichi, in tow. "What do you know about all this?" Ino waved her hand towards the village. Shikamaru sighed as he understood what she was asking. He turned to the boys and moved towards them, to look over the railings at the village. "It has been really busy from the morning. My dad was walking with me and Choji to the academy when those white-masked ninja came and whispered something to him. He said he had to go and jumped up and went to the tower. When we were entering the academy, I saw him coming back. He did not look happy. In fact, he was frowning, and let me tell you, my dad never frowns. The worst I have seen him is him narrowing his eyes and look bored." Shikamaru said as the others hung on to his words. Shino nodded and added his opinion. "That means whatever is happening is very serious." "Do you think there is a war?" a new voice asked. They turned to see a pink-haired girl had come up to the group and was standing next to Ino. Ino put an arm around her and introduced her. "This is my friend, Sakura." The boys gave her a nod as she blushed, looking at Sasuke. "I think that is highly improbable." Shino answered the girl's question. "A war is usually preceded by a tense environment for some time period. We have not heard of any such thing in the past few days." Sasuke nodded and added, "If it was war, they would also make an announcement to the civilians and there would be an increase in the village defense." Another boy walked up to them, with a white dog resting on his head. "What are you guys talking about?" he asked. "We're just trying to guess what is up with the village today." Choji replied between bites. "Yeah, I was wondering about that. Almost all Inuzuka clan ninja have been called. Even the genins. Also, the dogs whose partners aren't available have been called anyways." Kiba said. The others digested this new information. Shino glanced down to the village. "I also saw many of my clan members going to the tower," he said. "Anyo, many Hyuga branch family members have also been summoned. Even those who are not officially registered as Konoha ninja." A voice came from behind the tree near them. The children turned to see the young Hyuga heiress peeking from behind the tree. Ino signaled the girl to join them and the girl slowly made her way to the group. Shikamaru sighed as he looked up at the clouds. "I think I know what is happening," he said slowly, thinking. "What?" Sasuke asked. Even the girls looked at him. "It seems they are going to search for someone or something," Shino answered. Shikamaru nodded. "How can you say so?" Sakura asked. "They are calling Hyuga, Aburame and Inuzuka clans. Even those who are on leave. These clans are usually part of tracking units." Shikamaru answered the girl. "Is someone dangerous on the loose?" Ino asked. Sakura looked a little scared at the thought. Sasuke's thoughts went to the man who had killed his clan. His eyes narrowed. "I don't think so." Shikamaru shook his head. "Why?" the Hyuga heiress asked. Shino answered, "Because even genin teams are being deployed. If it was someone dangerous, genin would not be part of the mission. Probably some high-profile civilian got lost or some kid from a big family ran away." Shikamaru yawned. He really wanted to take a nap. The children were still talking when Iruka-sensei arrived. Shikamaru raised his eyebrows. "Weren't you on leave, sensei? Did they bring you out of leave too?" he asked. Iruka looked at the Nara surprised. He was even more surprised when Shino asked, "Who is the search for? How do you know all this?" Iruka asked his students. "So there is a search?" Sasuke smirked. Iruka realized that he had been played. He looked at Shikamaru and the ponytailed boy shrugged. Wasn't hard to figure out, with all the tracking ninja being called. Iruka understood and felt his chest swell with pride at his students. However, he couldn't tell them their classmate had run away after their teacher tried to kill him. They would find out later, but Iruka wasn't going to be the one to tell them. "Never mind that," he said. "Just know that you can go home. Academy is cancelled for today." The children tried to argue but thought better of it as he glared at them. Iruka looked towards the tower. Please find him safe and sound, he thought. Sarutobi stood on the roof of his tower as he gazed at the 100-odd ninja standing before him. Only Junin and the Chunin team captains, along with 9 squad of his Anbu. This was going to be the largest manhunt organized by Konoha. He walked to the stone dais created by his Anbu general's jutsu to stand a little higher. As most of you know by now, you have been called for a search and retrieve mission. What you do not know is your target. I am going to tell you now. Your target is Uzumaki Naruto. He began. The ninja who knew of Naruto and the Kyuubi were shocked. Others were wondering why such measures were being taken for a single child. A troublemaker, at that. But they didn't notice their seniors stiffen at the name, so they stayed silent. Further strategy will be explained by Nara Shikaku. The Hokage said as Shikaku climbed up the steps to stand next to the Hokage. The detailed assignments will be given in the mission office, but I will explain the general strategy. The immediate area around the village will be assigned to genin teams with tracking experience. They will not be accompanied by their Junin instructors, but by 2 Chunin for tactical support. They are unlikely to enter a combat situation. Shikaku explained. All the ninja present nodded. Genin teams will not go beyond a day's travel. The area after that will be assigned to groups of 4 Chunin. A team that doesn't have a tracker will be assigned one. These teams will go up to the border of the Fire Country. For the area outside the border, 1 Junin along with 2 trackers will be assigned for ally countries. 2-man Junin teams and trackers will go into neutral countries. The Anbu teams will go into enemy countries, where stealth is of importance, and chances of combat are high. Shikaku finished as the Hokage stepped forward again. Remember, we are searching to retrieve, so force is not to be used when dealing with Uzumaki Naruto. He ran away because someone tried to kill him and almost succeeded. He is scared and paranoid. He believes that he will be eliminated as a Nukenin, so it is highly probable that he will try to flee on contact. Try to impress upon him that you do not mean him any harm, and are under my orders to bring him back to me. Also inform him if he listens that the man who attacked him has been taken into custody and will not be bothering him ever again. The shinobi nodded. All this was news to most of them. Somebody had tried to kill the demon brat? And he was in prison? Also, if rumors were to be believed, the council's powers had been reduced after they tried to protest. It was easy to see that the Hokage was angry. If anyone tried to harm the brat during the mission, the Hokage was sure to deal with them severely. Sarutobi looked at his shinobi forces. He knew that none would dare to harm Naruto for quite a while now. All he could hope was that they find Naruto safe and bring him back. He nodded to Shikaku and left the stone dais. The rest could be handled by the mission office and Shikaku. Sarutobi made his way into his personal resting room next to his office and sat down in his easy chair. It was 2 hours later when he observed teams beginning to leave the village. He glanced at the clock. It was already 1 in the afternoon. According to the report by Dog, they had left the boy after midnight. Iruka's letter showed that Naruto had spent some time in his attacker's apartment. That meant Naruto could have left any time after 2 in the morning. That would mean he had an 11-hour lead. Another factor was that they weren't sure in which direction Naruto had left. By the time they managed to pinpoint the direction, Naruto would have gained another hour. Sarutobi sighed, but he knew that now it was out of his hands. He could only sit and wait for news, hopefully favorable news. I hope he isn't in any enemy territory, Sarutobi prayed as he began his wait. Dog and his team were returning to their last checkpoint for the 10th time. He was frustrated by now. The heavy rains the night before had all but washed away the scent of their target. Even his ninkin were having trouble sniffing out the boy's tracks. It was already 16 hours into the search. He heard on the radio that other teams were not faring any better. Suddenly, a voice rang out on his headset. All Anbu teams within range, move to rendezvous point SX-1010. Crane jumped up to his captain, waiting for instructions. Rendezvous point SX-1010 was an Anbu code for the narrow path leading to Kanabi Bridge. Dog stiffened. It led to the place where the Anbu had lost his best friend. More importantly, that is the direction of Iwa, Dog thought as he nodded to his squad, and they began moving towards the rendezvous point. After a while, they heard the message being repeated without the Anbu code, meant for non-Anbu teams. In a little while, they were joined by the other teams moving towards the destination mentioned on the radio. Out of the 7 teams moving together, only 2 were Anbu, The rest were Junin teams and one Chunin team. In an hour, they reached their destination. As they skidded to a stop, Dog noticed that their group wasn't the only one that had answered the call. He could see Farid's team along with a group of Junin teams. He beckoned Farid as the others acknowledged their arrival. Farid disappeared and reappeared in front of Dog. He pointed to a team with 3 Aburame in it. Their bugs made positive ID on the target's signature a little distance back. They radioed their location and followed the trail here. The scent goes into the river. That's where they lost the scent. Dog nodded. He understood why the team had called for backup. It was confirmed that the boy had passed through here, but further path taken was unknown. He looked up to the sky. He could see black clouds in the distance into Earth country. It seems it has not stopped raining ahead. It will make tracking all the more difficult, but with Iwa patrols taking cover, we may be able to infiltrate faster. Ram said as he came up to stand with the other squad captains. We need to re-evaluate our strategy. Dog spoke. The other 2 nodded. He turned to see that all other teams were looking at the 3 Anbu captains standing together and talking, waiting for further instructions, as they were the highest-ranked officers in the field. Ram made a gesture with his hand, calling the Junin team captains. Dog waited as the captains arrived. It is now confirmed that the target passed through here. It seems that the boy is going into the Earth country. Dog informed the newcomers. Is he going to betray us by going into Iwa? One team leader asked. The others pondered at this idea for a few seconds, until Dog spoke up. I don't think so. He is an academy student. There is no way he knows where Iwa is. Even rookie Junin aren't aware of that fact. No, if we remember Hokage-sama's words, he said that the boy expected to be pursued. He was under the impression that he will be pursued to be eliminated as a Nukanin. It is only logical from his point of view to go into an area where his pursuers' movements will be hampered and he will have a natural defense in the form of enemy patrols that will delay and maybe even eliminate the threat. Dog said as he shook his head at the Junin's question. Assuming he has the brains to think like that. Ram offered. From what I've heard, he is a no-good troublemaker. Another Junin captain shook his head and sighed, typical of his Nara clan. Oh, he has brains, no doubt. His traps and pranks are really well thought out. In our clan, Chunin are taught his better traps, and sometimes when a Junin discovers one without setting it off, we use it to test those Chunin. Others looked surprised at this piece of information. The Nara shrugged. His traps are that good. He looked at the others and continued. The part of the brain used for planning is used for any and all planning, not for certain areas only. In this case, it is highly probable that he anticipated our actions and planned for this possibility. The others stood and digested the Nara's words. Ram was the first to speak, taking this knowledge into account and adding to it the fact that the target had a 12-hour lead on us. It has been 18 hours since the search began. A child like him would have taken 9 to 10 hours to reach this place. At least 12. Farid interrupted. He would have stopped to rest at least 2 times. He is an academy brat, after all. It's not like he could have been running non-stop, is it? Most of the captains chuckled ignorantly. Somewhere far away, Naruto sneezed. 12, then. Ram acquiesced. That puts him at around a 18-hour lead. Taking into account the planning before we move out and factoring in Iwa patrols and other variables, like losing his tracks, he moving away continuously, I estimate at least a 20-hour search before one of us finds him. Dog nodded and spoke. While in Earth country, if we run into patrols, try not to kill. We don't need this causing a war. The others nodded. Now they needed to make a strategy. Finally, after 20 minutes, the captains broke apart and moved to their teams, except for Dog. Among the Anbu captains he was the most senior as he had held the captain's post the longest, so he was put in charge. We have decided that the Junin teams will be joining the Anbu going into enemy territory. All of you are capable of handling yourselves. The Chunin team, however, will stay behind and try to call for any more teams in the vicinity. We will leave our plan with you. If any more Junin or above teams arrive, appraise them of the situation and tell them to read this. Dog threw a scroll to the Chunin team captain. Any Chunin team that comes will go back and try to round up more Junin teams and send them here. This is going to be our base of operation from now until we return with the target. The Chunin nodded. Dog continued. The team captains will brief the rest on the way. Move out. In a whirlwind of leaves, only the Chunin team remained in the clearing. Naruto tried to push the feelings of remorse back as he ran. He had cried for the first few hours as he ran, then had hiccuped for the next 2. It had taken all his determination not to turn back when the sun had started to shine on his head. He had run all day and all night. The rain had been going on sporadically, on and off. Before he had the chance to dry in the sun, it would start again, drenching him again. For the last 7 hours, there had been no dense forest to take cover in. There had been some trees, but not dense like the woods around the village. For the past 30 minutes, he had been running on open plains. From what he remembered of the map he had brought with him from his teacher's place, he was already in Earth Country. I'm just thankful that I haven't run into any enemy. Naruto had barely finished this thought when he saw blurs appear on both his side. He skidded to a stop. So did the blurs. These blurs turned out to be Iwa shinobi. They were wearing red flowing robe-like thingies, like the Hyuga, except these guys' robes had only one sleeve. Naruto cursed inwardly. He saw there were 4 shinobi. They were looking at him with frowns, all of them in defensive positions, surrounding him. Naruto did what he always did when people frowned at him. He gave them the biggest grin he could muster. This threw the ninjas off for a second before they regained their composure. Hello. Heh, heh. Naruto said, grinning as if he had known them all his life. Who are you? The woman in the group asked him, not harshly. Naruto. Naruto replied as he puffed out his chest in a comedic fashion. The woman disappeared in a blur and he felt someone smack him into the ground. OWWW. He yelped as his face met the ground. What was that for? The woman looked at her comrades and shook her head. Not a henge. He is definitely a kid. The others relaxed a bit. The woman stooped down and lifted Naruto back onto his feet, using the straps of his backpack. There you go, kid. Sorry about that, had to check. But no harm done, right? She asked as she dusted him off. Another shinobi came forward. This guy had an eye patch and he was still frowning. The kid looked too much like the man who still plagued his nightmares even 10 years after his death for him to be comfortable. Who are you, kid? He asked again. Naruto still had his head in his hands as he rubbed the sore spot. He looked up and said, Naruto, like I said the first time. Full name. The man growled. Naruto's eyes widened in understanding. He straightened as he again puffed out his chest and said with pride, Uzumaki Naruto. All shinobi exchanged glances. Most of them had heard about the clan. It had been their village that had destroyed them after all. Other than a few stragglers, none remained of that clan. This boy was probably not a full Uzumaki, maybe only a quarter or half as he didn't have the trademark red hair. Also, his face had weird marks on them. They were too symmetrical to be random scars. They were probably some clan markers. The woman asked, so, Uzumaki Naruto, what are you doing here? Every shinobi noticed as the child's face fell. The sadness in his demeanor was apparent as his eyes watered. Naruto looked down as he replied softly, I ran away. The kunoichi couldn't help it and she put an arm on the boy's shoulder as she knelt in front of him. Naruto looked up to see her peering into his eyes. Why did you run away? Naruto fought back tears as he replied, everybody hates me there. What about your parents? Surely they will worry? I have no parents. Naruto replied, his voice breaking. The kunoichi's eyes softened and she pulled Naruto into a hug. Naruto was surprised, but he let her hug him. Where are you from? The eye-patch shinobi asked. Naruto decided to lie. A village, 10 hours away from here. The other, thin shinobi felt sorry for the boy. One asked, what were you planning to do? Naruto looked up and said in a pitiable manner, I don't know. All the shinobi felt sorry for the boy. They had just met the kid, but they seemed to want to help him, in spite of his resemblance to a certain dead Konoha shinobi. The ninja with the eye patch growled as he said, he looks too much like the Yellow Flash. I don't like it. The thin ninja rolled his eyes as he replied. The Yellow Flash has been dead for ages now. Seriously, you old geezers need to stop pissing your pants at the mention of his name. What's the big deal? You little punk. You don't know what you're talking about. I saw him take out my entire platoon before the leader had time to order a retreat. I only survived because I fell down in fear and had the sense to play dead. Although sometimes I think he knew I was alive but let me go. Naruto looked on, confused. He didn't understand anything the shinobi were talking about. He didn't remember the moniker given to his favorite Hokage. He didn't know any yellow guy, although he was curious as to how the yellow guy looked. Was he all yellow or just yellow eyes and face? He stopped paying attention to the talking shinobi as he tried to imagine the yellow guy. He then noticed that one guy wasn't really offering anything to the discussion. He stood differently from the others as well, with an unspoken authority about him, like the Hokage Jiji stood when Naruto was sent to him after he had done something wrong. Worst case scenario, he is some bastard child that the Yellow Flash fathered in a brothel before he died. Even if he is, the boy is no Yellow Flash. Then the thin guy started laughing. The others gave him a questioning look. Imagine if he became a Iwa nin and met some Konoha nin when he became older. They would shit their pants at the sight of him. They'd think we'd managed to clone the Yellow Flash. The others also laughed, but the woman suddenly stopped. The woman turned to her comrades and said slowly, "Maybe we could take him back with us to Iwa." Naruto looked up at the woman and then at her friends. Suddenly he understood what the woman was asking her friends. She wanted to take him back to her shinobi village. Naruto was thinking furiously. These guys don't seem too bad. They're even considering taking an unknown kid back to their village. He looked at the group again. But do I want to go and become an Iwa nin? If I do, I will become an enemy of Konoha. His heart became heavy at the thought. Then he remembered something else that made him sad. But they already want to kill me, so with these guys I might be safe. I guess I'll figure it out later. Naruto knew that if he didn't show any response, he would look a little suspicious. So he decided to act as if he was interested. Really? He asked. The woman smiled as all the sadness suddenly evaporated as they watched the boy look at them with excitement. Please say yes, Shinobi-san. He turned to their group leader. The Iwa nin was surprised as the boy looked at him with puppy dog eyes. Must resist, he thought. But the damage was done. Also, he knew the kunoichi. She wouldn't take no for an answer. Fine, he said. The kunoichi smiled. The Iwa nin also noticed how the kid had automatically turned to him on instinct. No one had told him that he was the squad leader. He hadn't even spoken yet. Perhaps the kid was going to be worth the trouble. He would probably have to do something about the orange jumpsuit though. It was because of the orange outfit that they had seen the blonde from quite far. Yay! The blonde jumped around, doing what they could see was a victory dance. Then he turned to him and said, Annyeonghaseyo, Shinobi-san. Will I be taught all the cool moves you ninja do with Chitara? All ninja looked confused. He asked, Chitara? Naruto looked at him in surprise. You know, the stuff needed to do jutsu? The energy TT Ibeo? He asked. TT Ibeo? The ninja looked at him funny. Naruto's face went red as he said, I sometimes add that to my sentences when I'm emotional TT Ibeo. The kunoichi burst out laughing. I think he means chakra. She laughed. Naruto looked at her with a confused expression. I'm pretty sure it was called Chitara. He said. This made the others start laughing too. Naruto just shrugged. This made the others laugh even more. What's so funny, Shinobi-san? You are, little fishcake. The kunoichi chuckled as she ruffled his hair. Naruto liked how she did it. And if you're coming with us, you're going to have to stop calling us Shinobi-san. Use our names instead. My name is Iwataru Kanami. The guy with the eye patch is Duzu-san. She pointed. The thin guy is Genshu Ryatu. Our squad leader is Iwataru Sasuke. He is a Junin. Naruto looked at her and then at the team leader. Both of you are Iwataru? Are you brother and sister? You don't look similar. He asked as the leader sputtered and the others laughed. Naruto wondered why. It was true after all. The kunoichi had light brown hair, chocolate eyes and soft features. The Junin had pitch black hair, black eyes and a pointed chin. The kunoichi ruffled his head again as she shook her head. No, little fishcake. There are other ways to have the same name. She smiled. Like what? Naruto asked, tilting his head to the side. We should leave now. The Junin cut in quickly. Naruto shrugged as the other two sniggered again. Okay then, little fishcake. Keep up. Kanami patted the boy's shoulder. The odd little group of 4 shinobi and a little boy started running. They had traveled till it was nearly dark when they decided to stay in the next town for Naruto's benefit. Energetic or not, he was a kid and was bound to get tired. The entire way had gone by with Naruto asking questions non-stop. All the shinobi were amused at the boy's thought processes. They couldn't understand how he had gone from talking about water jutsu to some place called Ichiraku. When they asked him, he replied, when you told me about water jutsu, I thought it was awesome. So my mind asked me what else is awesome? Easy, ramen. The best ramen is Ichiraku's. Once again, the shinobi laughed and Naruto had no idea why. He was just happy that the others were in a good mood. It was rare to see someone laughing with genuine amusement by something he did. Sasuke noticed that his wife was getting very friendly with the boy. Even he had to admit, the kid was interesting. Normally, cases like his were handled by the Chunin in charge of training foundlings or orphans. But he could see that Konami was not going to let that happen. He was going to get bullied into looking into the boy's adjustment into the village. He wouldn't be surprised if she offered to let him stay at their house, the way the two were behaving. What do I care? The mansion has enough rooms as it is. At least it will be interesting with him around, he thought. Their slow trek back, to accommodate for the speed of their new member, was going fine until another team of shinobi appeared beside them. They looked a bit harried. Their leader spoke quickly. There are reports of sightings of multiple teams of Konoha dogs inside our borders. They are coming in quick. We have already lost contact with 2 border teams. We are to go and check it out. Naruto stiffened on hearing this. Gigi sent out people after me so soon? More than one team it sounds like. The other squad members looked at Naruto. Who is he? Sasuke replied, an orphan. He wants to be a shinobi. We were taking him back home. The other leader nodded. Events like these were uncommon, but not unheard of. But he can't come with us. It's likely that we will get into a fight. Konami nodded and beckoned Naruto to her side. She took out some money and passed it to the boy. Take this, little fish cake. Go straight in the direction we were going in. There is a small town there. Get something to eat. Ramen, if you want. If it's late, rent a room and go to sleep. Get up and go outside in the morning. We will be back in a few hours. We'll pick you up from there tomorrow. She smiled gently at the boy. Naruto knew that he couldn't afford to do that. If Konoha ninja were after him, he had to get away and fast. Even though he really liked the nice lady, he didn't really want to become an Iwa shinobi. Somehow he knew he didn't. Naruto nodded but asked, how will you find me in that town? Konami smiled and ruffled his hair one last time. Trust me kid, I'd spot you a mile away. Then, the Iwa shinobi rushed to their borders. Dog chopped another Iwa nin behind his neck, and moved to the next one. This was the second patrol they had run into, or his ninkin had run into. This team had dogs as well, so they had been found out. One of the dogs had managed to run away, probably to warn other teams. It was already 16 hours since they had broken away from their base back in Fire Country. Crane appeared behind him and said, should we take a different route? There will be others now that the dog got away. No. We have his scent right now, although it is faint. If it rains again, we might lose it altogether. Dog shook his head. We need to continue on this path as fast as possible. Crane nodded. The Anbu left their opponents on the ground and raced forward. After an hour or so of running, the small dog leading the chase stopped, causing the Anbu to halt as well. Dog looked at his summon and asked, what happened? Did you lose the scent? The dog looked back as if offended. No. The wind just brought a fresh set of scents. 8 people traveling towards us and quickly. Probably 2 teams moving together. Dog sighed as he thought, not again. I guess we'll just be done with it quickly. He turned to his squad and ordered. Crane and I will burrow underground. Raccoon, make a genjutsu to hide yourself, and Sparrow. We'll do it quick and easy. Wait a minute, the small dog said as it sniffed the air again. I think yes, I'm sure. There is also the scent of the target mixed with their scents. It is faint, but it is there. All 4 Anbu turned to look at the dog on the ground. Sparrow asked first, you mean the boy is coming towards us with the enemy? The dog shook his head from side to side and replied, no, the smell is too faint for him to be with the group. It is a second-hand smell. Someone in that group had close contact with the boy. Dog nodded and turned to his team. Restrain them only. We will need that one conscious to interrogate. The others nodded. Sasuke was the first to notice the assault. He shoved his wife out of the way as a wood prison came out of the ground and caught 3 of them in it. The other team's leader was caught in a genjutsu along with his team as more wood came out of the ground and bound their hands apart, stopping them from doing seals. He saw in dismay as Konami was attacked by an animal-masked ninja. Anbu. The sight filled him with terror. There was no way his wife would survive against one of the elite Konoha killers. Even less experienced Junin were advised to avoid engaging the Leaf Village's assassination squad. He saw his wife slam into the ground and wood come out of the ground to bind her there. He tried to break his bonds but they were very strong. As he struggled, another piece of wood came out and rammed into his stomach. He fell to the ground, gasping. He saw a dog sniff the air and then swiftly move next to Konami and announce, "This is the one who knows what we need." Sasuke watched with wide eyes as the wood shifted to lift Konami into a sitting position. He felt fear like he had never felt before as he saw an Anbu move towards her. He saw her try to struggle, but it was futile. He finally found his voice. "Get away from her, you bastards. Fight me, let her go," he yelled. The Anbu stopped to glance at him. "Yes, come at me, forget about her," he thought. But after the glance, the Anbu started to walk towards Konami again. "No, ask me whatever you want, let her go. If you touch one hair on her head, I swear I will kill you even if I have to follow you to Konoha. I will burn your villa," Sasuke was yelling, but another wood arm came and slammed into him, but this time to his head. "Konami," was his last coherent thought as he fell into the darkness. Konami watched as her husband fell to the ground, unconscious. She turned to look at her captive with fear in her eyes. They had run into Anbu of all opponents. The torture department of the Anbu was very well known, along with the names of its skilled ninja, the Morino clan. She shook as she resolved herself not to scream. She wouldn't scream, even if she went mad with the pain. Funnily, all she could think was that Naruto would be waiting for people who would now never come. Dog stepped up to the woman and shifted his mask so that he could slide his hite up from his eye. Then he looked into the woman's eyes and she fell limp. Konami woke as she felt someone shaking her. To her relief, it was her husband, stooping over her with tears in his eyes. "I thought you were going to die," he rasped out as he pulled her into his embrace. I'm fine," she managed to say as her husband tried to squeeze the life out of her with his bear hug. She patted him on the back as she asked, "What happened?" Reitu came to stand by her and said, "Just as I thought they were going to start the interrogation." He avoided the word torture for her sake. Reinforcements arrived. 3 teams with a dog. "Those Konoha bastards left you and ran." The teams gave chase. "One of them broke us out of the wood thing. We came to you but you were unconscious, perhaps from the shock. Then we woke him up," he nodded to Sasuke. "And then he finished lamely." Konami laughed a shaky laugh. She had been saved. No, they had been saved. She tried to stand, but her knees were still shaky. Sasuke put his arm around her to steady her. She looked up at the sky. It had gotten dark but it still wasn't late. She turned to her husband and smiled. "I guess we should go and pick the little fish cake now," she said. Sasuke nodded absent-mindedly. She smiled as she saw how shaken her husband was to see her get captured. She gave him a quick kiss. He looked at her and asked, "What was that for?" She smiled as she answered, "For loving me so much." She then laughed as he went red. She moved out of his arms and said, "Come on, let's go." They made good time as they made their way to the town. The other team had come with them as well. Konami felt relieved knowing that her comrades were with her right now. The experience of almost being tortured had left her emotionally weak. She didn't show it, but she would have been a little afraid if the others had wanted to join the teams giving chase to the Anbu. She looked at her husband running beside her. She would ask him for training when they got home. She would apply for a break from missions and train until she regained some confidence. As they reached the town, she asked a passerby where the best ramen restaurant was. She made her way to where the man had pointed her to and sure enough, orange assaulted her eyes. She smiled as she called out, "Hey, little fish cake. Over here." Naruto did not turn to look at her. Suddenly she noticed that she couldn't hear the noise of the crowd anymore. She looked around and was scared to see that she was alone. None of her teammates or her husband was beside her. She turned towards Naruto again, but standing in front of her was the same Anbu who had been about to torture her. She felt fear creep up to her heart as she looked into the black holes for eyes in the mask. She saw something red for a moment before the dark swallowed her whole. Kakashi lowered the cloth over his eye as he moved away from the limp woman. From what he had seen, Naruto was not a prisoner. In fact, the woman had been worried for the boy. Not worried like danger worried, but worried as a mother would worry for her child who had gone alone to the market. She had even known to find the boy at a ramen stand. What exactly was the nature of her relationship with the boy? Surely they had met only a few hours ago? Was the boy truly going to betray them to Iwa? He shook his head as he reminded himself that he needed to find Naruto first. He could play 20 questions with himself later. The target is in a town a couple of hours from here. Raccoon, put her in with those guys. Sparrow, make sure they don't wake up anytime in the next 24 hours. Then we move out. The Anbu nodded as they completed their orders, then with renewed vigor, the team dashed towards the town. The Anbu raced to the town, knowing that this might be their last chance. Soon, Iwa Junin and their special forces, similar to Anbu, would come to the borders as Iwa sent out their elite. Dog had dismissed his summon as they knew that the target was in the town. Something he would later regret. But right now, all of them ran as fast as they could. They reached the town in an hour. Dog and the others hanged into civilians and asked for the ramen stands. For the next hour, they searched every ramen stand and other restaurant, but they couldn't find him. Dog didn't want to summon Pakun again. A ninkin would give them away as he wore a Konoha headband. But after the 1 hour they had spent searching, the Anbu moved to an alley where Dog took out a scroll and rubbed the target's socks that they had for the scent onto it. Then he performed a series of hand signs and slammed the hand into the ground along with the scroll. Strange markings appeared on the ground but no summon appeared. His team wasn't surprised. They knew this move. It was their leader's Doden, Suiga no Jutsu. The dogs would track the target from beneath the ground and return when they found him. The Anbu only had to wait. After roughly another hour, 8 ninkin burst out of the ground and stood before them. The dog from before, Pakun, shook his head. There is no scent of the target in the town. He was never here. Dog looked at his ninkin. Are you sure? Yes. Dog turned to his team and said, so. Now what? Do we continue, risking running into Iwa forces or return? Sparrow spoke, we can try till the morning. The elite Iwa nin are unlikely to reach here before that time. Iwa is a day's hard run from here. Raccoon nodded as he added, we are probably the closest to the target. We need to trace our steps back until Pakun picks up the scent. Dog listened to his team. He looked at Crane who nodded. Dog returned the nod, then we follow the trail until morning. If we don't find him by then, we return. The team nodded to each other and disappeared. Naruto was wheezing as he ran. Every muscle in his body screaming for mercy, for him to stop. But the fear of his pursuers catching him drove him on. He hadn't eaten for the last 2 days. It was almost morning. He would run for another couple of hours before he took a rest. No use running if he died from exhaustion. The Anbu team ran fast. 5 hours ago they had picked up the scent of the boy. On the trail, the smell was slowly getting stronger, meaning that they were getting closer. An hour, maybe 2 at the most, Dog thought. They would find the boy and bring him back. At this point, all of them were running on soldier pills. If the boy tried to run, he would forego the polite convincing and just whack him on the head, tie him up and take him back. He'll apologize to the Hokage and his late sensei later. Naruto was exhausted and hurting. Running away had seemed like a good idea 3 days ago. Now, he was lost in an unknown land, hungry from not eating for 2 days. He could hardly keep his eyes open. After leaving the Iwa group, he had steered away from towns and villages. It was early morning, probably 7 in the morning. 1 more hour, then I'll rest. He stumbled and fell down, the weight of his rucksack almost crushing him. He didn't have the strength to pick himself up. He slept. His pain in his head woke him up. He felt someone take his bag off his back. He tried to grab his bag when he heard a gentle voice as he was turned on his back. Don't worry, I am only trying to help you. Naruto tried to open his eyes but the effort increased the pain, so he gave up after he managed to open them for a second. He saw a gentle face with long black hair. The last thing he heard was the person call out to someone. We should help him, Zabuza-sama. Then he passed out. Dog stood at the spot where Naruto had passed out, looking at the empty ground. Pakun looked up to him and said, more sense came to this place, perhaps half an hour ago. The kid's scent is in the air, not the ground. He is being carried. There is also the smell of a sedative. Dog and the others took this in. Follow them, Dog said. The team dashed forward again. After 10 minutes, the summon looked to the Anbu with the mask of his kind. It's getting fainter. Whoever got the kid is moving really fast. Almost as fast as us. Dog was debating what to do when Crane appeared beside him. Chances are that the new group is rested and alert, unlike us. Even if we catch up to them, we are at a disadvantage. We also have to consider that the trail is going further away from the Fire Country's borders. We risk running into Iwa Junin now. We cannot complete the mission. Dog knew what his team member was saying was correct. It hurt him physically to voice the words. Very well, abort mission. The mission to retrieve Uzumaki Naruto is a failure. Hizurin had been waiting for the past 2 days for news. All the Genin teams had returned without any news 3 days ago. Almost all Chunin teams had also returned by now. 2 days ago, a Chunin team had returned and told him about the new incursion of the Junin teams into Earth Country from near the Kanabi Bridge. His heart had begun beating faster after hearing that. Of all the places to go, Naruto had chosen the one country where people might kill him just for his resemblance to his father. He had been a little encouraged by the news that at least they knew where he was and his best Anbu units were on the trail. But today, he had seen all but 2 teams return from the Earth Country, 2 of his Anbu teams. All other teams had continued until Iwe had sent out its own Junin teams. His orders had been clear on that front. They were to return if high-level combat was possible unless Naruto was very close or worse, had been taken prisoner. Now only Dog's and Ferret's teams remained. He was still hoping for the best until he saw Dog and Ferret making his way towards the tower. None of them had Naruto with them. Ferret stopped at the roof of Anbu headquarters while Dog continued forward. Dog kneeled as he arrived in the Hokage's office. With a firm voice that hid the fear behind it, Hizurin commanded. Report. Dog kept his head down as he said the words that pierced Sarutobi's heart like a dagger. Mission to retrieve Uzumaki Naruto was a failure. Sarutobi controlled himself as he felt his knees shake. He couldn't allow himself to show weakness to his shinobi. He nodded and commanded Dog to continue. We managed to find Naruto's trail. It seems he had come in contact with Iwa Nin and was on good terms with at least one kunoichi, and was traveling with them. He was going to Iwa? Sarutobi cut in, surprised. It looked like it, Sandame-sama. Dog replied. What do you think? Sarutobi asked his Anbu. We initially presumed that he was going to Iwa with them, but he was not at the meeting place the woman had decided with him. In my opinion, he must have run into them and made up some story. Either he was biding his time till he could escape, or he could be considering going to Iwa. The woman and Naruto seemed to have developed an almost sister-brother relationship. Dog said as he finally looked up to the Hokage. You believe that the welcome change in his treatment would make Naruto go to Iwa? The third asked saddened. Again, his failings in dealing with Naruto's treatment at the hands of his villagers had come to haunt him. It is possible, Sandame-sama. He is, after all, a kid. He wants attention and recognition. Any affection he receives would draw him like a moth to a flame. Dog said after a few moments. But that is not all, Hokage-sama. Sarutobi looked back at Dog. His Anbu's voice had betrayed that some worse news was yet to come. After we did not find Uzumaki Naruto at the designated meeting place, we backtracked until Pakun picked up his scent. We followed the scent and we were getting closer. Then we reached a point where 2 other scents ran into him from another direction. Pakun smelled sedatives and said that Uzumaki Naruto was being carried. After we decided to follow his scent again, we found that instead of closing in on it like before, we were actually falling behind. Very slowly, but falling behind nonetheless, as by that time, we were running purely on soldier pills. Even if we managed to catch up to these unknowns if they stopped to rest, we would be at a serious disadvantage. I deemed the mission to be a failure and we returned. We met Ferret's team on the border and returned with them. Dog finished. Sarutobi nodded and he dismissed the Anbu. He watched Dog blur and vanish. He sighed. Bore. He called out and the Anbu appeared, kneeling. Inform the council of this development. I don't trust myself in the same room as them right now. He waited until his Anbu left. Then he turned and walked to his window and said to what seemed like thin air, call Danzo to my office. The root ninja hidden in the wall felt his heart quicken. He stayed in his spot. Sarutobi turned his head in the root's direction and said to what would seem like thin air to a casual observer, immediately. The root ninja, sweating behind his mask, melded out of the wall and was about to leave when Sarutobi added, and after that, find Nara Shikaku and Amino Aruka. Tell them to come to my office. The root ninja wondered if he should say something about the fact that he was not technically the Hokage's to order around. He caught the look in the Hokage's eyes and thought the better of it. It wouldn't hurt him to do as the man had asked after all. The ninja nodded and vanished. Sarutobi stood at the window, still thinking when Danzo arrived in a few minutes. If he was worried about the Hokage knowing about the root ninja in his office, he did not show it. "Was it your men who took away Naruto-kun?" he asked without facing his visitor. "My men? I don't understand," Sarutobi Danzo said. His ninja had briefed him on the ANBU's report to the Hokage. He chose not to acknowledge the fact. "I am not in the mood for your games, Shimura," Sarutobi said in a dangerously low voice. "I have tolerated your secrets and manipulations because I know that most of what you do is for Konoha. But, if you do not come clean right now, I will end you." Instantly, 3 hooded figures of the Anbu general and his subordinates appeared, surrounding Danzo, their tanto drawn and ready. Danzo stood silently for a few moments and then replied, "No." Sarutobi accepted the answer. The Anbu sheathed their tanto but did not retreat. "You had teams of your own following Naruto-kun?" Sarutobi continued. "Yes. Do any of them have any idea what happened?" "No. My teams were limited because of their lesser numbers. Not many were near Earth Country when the secondary base was set up." "Are any of them still in the field?" "Yes. As soon as they return, I want to hear what they found." "From their own mouths. That is not possible. Danzo, I am tiring of this nonsense," Sarutobi said as he turned his head slightly to look at his old comrade. Danzo saw rage in the eyes of the Hokage. Everybody believed the Sandame to be a peaceful man. Danzo knew better. Sarutobi Hizuran had always been a man of ideals, but he was also a man of wrath. Over the years as Hokage, he had managed to learn to keep his temper under wraps. Right now, Danzo could see unbridled and fearsome rage in his one-time rival. Danzo knew that at this point in time, Sarutobi was very well capable of fighting him until Danzo was nothing more than a smear on the ground. An angry Sarutobi did not fight fair. The professor would not stop himself from stooping so low as to use kinjutsu from his vast arsenal. Only 3 times had Danzo seen Sarutobi in a similar rage, and each time, the ninja world had learned to fear the man more than before. Danzo decided that complete honesty was the only option. They are bound by a seal that doesn't allow them to disclose mission information to non-root members, even under torture. Danzo said. Sarutobi continued to glare at the man for a few moments and then he turned his face towards the window again. "I guess I should have expected that from you. Very well, you will do. But understand this, Shimura, any hint of secrets or half-truths, and you will find yourself a long-term tenant of the torture department. You will stay there until you have nothing more to give me than the name of your favorite seafood dish." Danzo nodded. Sarutobi took a deep puff from his pipe and asked, "How many men do you have inside Iwa?" "Enough," Danzo answered. Sarutobi let the vague answer slide. The numbers did not matter to him. "If any of them hear or see anything about Naruto-kun, I must know as soon as you do." Danzo nodded. "I am guessing you are also keeping tabs on the general whereabouts of my student, Jiraiya?" Sarutobi asked and again Danzo nodded. "Drop me some directions and I will send out someone to bring him back." Sarutobi continued. Danzo asked, "Will he come back?" "For a while, at least. It is about Minato's child after all," Sarutobi said. He knew that Danzo had managed to find out many years ago. Danzo did not remark in surprise on Sarutobi's reply as he would have done usually. They were being honest for the time being. "Very well. I will have one of the root drop it by. Before you leave Danzo, I have something for you to do. Begin preparing strategies for a quick grab mission just in case Naruto-kun is indeed in Iwa." For the first time since the meeting, Danzo was truly surprised. He had assumed that Sarutobi would have tried diplomacy while he secretly tried covert ways, without the Hokage knowing. A genuine smile crossed his face. The next few days were going to be fun. "Specifications?" he asked. "A precise strike. My men should outnumber the root 2 to 1 at least. Other than that, use your own discretion." Sarutobi provided. "No limits on manpower. Just tell me what you need and I will give it to you. I will require at least 7 Anbu squads." Danzo warned. "You may take more if it means we will retrieve Naruto-kun." Sarutobi said and dismissed Danzo. Nara Shikaku was wondering why he had bothered to come at all. There was a friendly competition in the academy and his wife had ordered him to go and support their son. Their son, however, had no plans to compete at all and had forfeited as soon as his match had started. He was still thinking about what he was going to say to his wife when his son returned to his side, his hands in his pockets, looking as bored as only a Nara could. "Why did you do that, son?" Shikaku looked at Shikamaru reproachfully. "I thought we had an agreement. You would last at least a decent while and I would play shugi with you later." Shikaku sighed at his son. "It was too troublesome and you play with me because you like it, not because of little deals. So, it does not matter if I forfeited," Shikamaru said as he sat down next to his father. "Any news about Naruto?" Shikaku sighed. As soon as the genin teams had returned, most of the village had found out the reason for the massive search operation. Needless to say, the topic was very popular in the academy. "Well?" Shikamaru looked up towards his dad's face. Shikaku saw that many of his son's friends had turned towards him as well. He could see the Uchiha straining his ears without turning. The Inuzuka boy had almost turned backward in his seat. Ino, her pink-haired friend, the Hyuga heiress, Shibi's kid and Choji looked interested as well. "No, not yet. A couple of teams are yet to return," he informed his son. "Is it true that Anbu have been deployed as well?" the Aburame boy asked. Before Shikaku could answer, the Inuzuka kid said, as if, "Shino. If they had been sent out, Naruto's ass would have been in Konoha 2 days ago." Shikaku glanced at the boy with the red clan markers. "Actually, they have, Shino-kun." "What? No way. Even they couldn't find him?" Kiba said in disbelief. This caused Sasuke to turn and look as well. Shikaku gave a small half-smile as he said, "Perhaps your friend is much better than you think." All the kids were taking this in when a small voice asked, what is Anbu?" Shikaku looked to see the pink-haired girl blush as the other children looked at her in disbelief. "You don't know about the Anbu?" Kiba asked, incredulous. "Shut up, Kiba." Ino defended her friend. "Sakura's parents aren't ninja. All of us only know because our parents and clan members told us." "Don't worry, Sakura-chan. I will explain," Shikaku interrupted before he had a fight on his hands. "Anbu are elite ninja of our village. They are chosen from the very best our village has to offer, directly by the Hokage or the commander of Anbu. Even after that, they continuously train to become better and undergo many demanding regimes to become specialists. They are very skilled and take on very dangerous and high-risk missions. They are higher ranked than the Junin. They are all A-ranked ninja, which is higher than A rank." Shikaku explained and the girl's eyes widened as she understood why her friends were so surprised. To think that the class prankster had managed to evade these scary-sounding people as well, it surprised her too. Shikaku was about to sigh as he sensed an incoming unfamiliar presence. He looked up sharply. The children noticed this and stopped talking as a hooded and masked ninja arrived near Shikaku. Shikaku was surprised to see a root ninja in the open, but refrained from letting it show. The root ninja signaled that he had been summoned along with someone. The hooded ninja pointed towards the young academy instructor and vanished as quickly as he had arrived. "Oi Shikaku." Shikaku turned to see his friend, Inoichi, looking at the direction where the ninja had appeared with a frown on his face. "Wasn't that Masuke?" "Yeah," Shikaku said as he stood up. "Drop my son home, later, will you?" Inoichi nodded as Shikaku caught Iruka's attention and signaled the young man to follow him. He had a bad feeling about this. Naruto was aware of a cold and soothing feeling in his feet and legs. His ears could hear the sound of running water. He opened his eyes to find himself near a waterfall. He was in his boxers. His feet and legs were covered in some green paste. He wondered what was happening. "Where am I? Am I dreaming? Are you finally awake?" a gentle voice floated up to him. He turned his head to see a long-haired girl? Or a boy? Walking towards him with a basket. "You have been sleeping for 2 whole days." Naruto suddenly remembered what he had been doing when he had fallen asleep. He tried to sit up and tried to crawl quickly away from the newcomer. His back rammed into a pair of legs. He looked up to see the most scary-looking man he had ever seen, or was likely to a tall, bare-chested man, with the lower half of his face hidden by bandages, and eyes that scared Naruto into immobility. It probably didn't help that he was carrying a sword larger than Naruto on his shoulders. Naruto was still in shock when the long-haired air person kneeled next to him. "Don't worry, we are not going to hurt you." Naruto turned and looked at the person next to him. He wanted to ask, "Who are you?" Instead he asked, "Are you a girl Tt Ibeo?" He heard a snort from the man standing above him. He turned to look at the man and the person next to him smiled and said, "No. I am a boy. My name is Haku." "No way." Naruto screamed, pointing at the boy next to him. But, you're cuter than Sakura-chan. Haku stared at the boy with an amused expression on his face. While I do not know who Sakura-chan is, I'm sure she is cuter. No, Datbayo. Trust me, she is the cutest girl I know, and you are cuter. How is that possible? Sakura-chan, forgive me. I, Uzumaki Naruto, think that a boy is cuter than you. Wah! Naruto yelled to the sky. Haku chuckled at the boy's antics, but then he turned a bit serious as he said, "Well, Naruto-kun. What were you doing all alone in the plains with a backpack on your back?" Naruto sobered up as he looked at the boy. "I ran away from my village." "Why?" Haku asked. "They hate me there. My teacher at the ninja academy tried to kill me." Naruto replied. Haku's eyes widened as he heard the boy's reply. He looked up to Zabuza and saw that the Junin was paying attention as well. Mist had a ninja academy as well. Then Zabuza asked, "Which village are you talking about?" Naruto looked up vertically to see an upside-down version of Zabuza's head looking down at him. "Konoha," he answered. Zabuza and Haku shared a look. They looked back at the boy. Naruto was looking very sad and depressed as he remembered the events leading up to his running away. "What are you going to do now?" Haku asked him. Naruto thought for a moment about the Iwaku no Ichi before he answered. "Become a shinobi." "Why?" Zabuza asked. "Why not?" Naruto shrugged. Zabuza gave a nod, accepting the blonde's answer. "Who are you guys?" Naruto surprised the missing nin by asking. Then they realized that Naruto had no idea who they were. "We are shinobi, Naruto-kun," Haku answered. Naruto looked at the ninja with a new interest. "These guys are ninja? Cool. Wait, even this guy? Isn't he the same age as me? How old are you? Aren't you young to be shinobi?" Naruto questioned the boy. If the other boy was offended, he didn't show it. Instead, he chuckled as he answered the blonde. "I am 11 years old, Naruto-kun." "Cool," Naruto said as his eyes widened. The boy was only 1 year older than him. "What village are you from?" Haku smiled sadly. "We used to be from Kiri, but we ran away too. Now, Zabuza-sama and the others are Nukanin." "Like me," Naruto said. "I don't think you are a Nukanin, Naruto-kun. You have to be registered as the official ninja of the village you abandoned to be labeled a Nukanin. You are like me. I am not a registered Kiri nin, but Zabuza-sama trained me in the shinobi arts." Zabuza moved away from the boy and went to immerse his feet in the water. He was wondering whether he needed another brat in his team when he heard the blonde ask, "Who were they afraid of when they ran?" This got his undivided attention as he released a lot of killing intent on the boy. "Me, the demon of the bloody mist, afraid?" he growled. The boy shrank back, but asked with interest, "You're a demon too?" Zabuza was a little taken aback. What did the brat mean, "you too"? Who else is worthy for the title of the demon? "What do you mean, Gaki?" he asked slowly, anger leaving his voice to be replaced by curiosity. "I am also a demon," Naruto said, looking at Zabuza with interest. Zabuza snorted at this. "You, an orange eyesore, a demon? Make better jokes, Gaki. It ain't even remotely funny." "I am one too," Naruto yelled. Even if he didn't like the fact that he was a demon, he wasn't going to let someone say he wasn't. "That's why my villagers hate me and want to kill me, because I killed hundreds of people many years ago." Zabuza looked at the small boy. "If you want to lie, at least make up a good one, Gaki. You can't be any older than 10 and you sure as hell don't give the vibe of a killer." He scoffed. Naruto jumped up, pointed his fingers at the tall man and yelled, "Damn you. I am telling you I am a demon Datbayo. I am the Kyuubi." Zabuza's eyes narrowed at this declaration. He looked the boy up and down. "I think you were dropped on your head as a baby, Gaki." Naruto just stared at the man angrily. "He has balls, this one," Zabuza thought. "If you are the Kyuubi no Yoko, where are your famous tales I've heard about?" Zabuza asked, looking at the blonde intensely. Naruto was taken aback. He looked at Zabuza and then murmured something. "What was that?" Zabuza asked dangerously, thinking Naruto was cursing. "I said the Yondaime Hokage sealed me, so I don't know. I don't really remember anything from when I was a fox," Naruto said, not looking into Zabuza's eyes. Zabuza walked up to the blonde. Then, for the second time in the week, Naruto felt someone pound him on the head and his face met the ground. "OWW. Why does everybody keep doing that?" Naruto said, on the ground. "Probably because you say stupid things, Gaki." Zabuza growled at the boy. You ain't no demon, brat. You're a Jinchuriki. A genie what? Naruto asked as he looked up. Zabuza gave Naruto another pat on the head and Naruto's face was greeted by the ground again. What does that mean, Zabuza-sama? This time, it was Haku who asked. Naruto looked up from the ground. He wanted to know as well. What does he mean that I'm not a demon, but a genie chiki? Zabuza looked at his follower. He is not the demon, but a container to store or lock away the actual demon. His kind are called Jinchuriki, like the Yondaime Mizukage. Haku nodded as he understood. He had heard about the Mizukage from Zabuza-sama. He was the man who was responsible for the discontent that had led to civil wars in Kirigakure no Sato. He was the man Zabuza-sama had tried to kill and failed, causing him to run away and become a Nukenin. I don't understand. Both Zabuza and Haku looked at the blonde who had by now managed to sit up. The blonde looked like he was pouting. Zabuza felt an itch in his hand that he was sure would go away if he pounded the blonde back into the ground. However, if the kid was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, he had untold potential as a tool. A tool he could use against the Mizukage. The Kyuubi was the most powerful Biju. Even if the boy and Mizukage ended up killing each other, he would win. He needed the boy to join him and become his loyal tool. For that, he would have to show some patience. He sighed and tried to think of a way to explain. You are not the Kyuubi, Gaki. You are just a human who was unfortunate enough to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Think of yourself as a sacrifice to the demon. Zabuza said. Naruto nodded his head, but said, I still don't understand. Zabuza's hand twitched towards Kabikirabocho. He fought the urge to slice the boy's head off. How could anyone be so stupid? Perhaps the boy really had fallen on his head as a baby. You are not the demon itself, but merely its prison. Zabuza tried again. He saw that the blonde didn't get it this time either. He sighed and sat down on his haunches next to Naruto. He took Kabikirabocho off his shoulder and laid it on the ground. See this sword, kid? He asked. Yeah, think of the Kyuubi as this sword, okay? Okay. Now, watch. Zabuza lifted the arm cloth on his left arm back up to his elbows. Naruto noticed a weird design on the man's forearm. It looked familiar to things he had seen in the academy books. Inside the design were two swords in the shape of an X. Zabuza bit his thumb and smeared some blood on the design and then made a few hand seals and slammed his open palm into the design. There was a poof and some smoke, and Zabuza was holding a thin white scroll in the hand he had slammed into the design. The scroll looked very old and had exquisite design on it. On it was written, Kabikirabocho, on a drawing of the sword that Zabuza had put on the ground. Cool, Naruto said, his eyes widening. Haku smiled at the awe of the blonde. Shut up and watch, kid, I'm not going to do it again. Zabuza said as he laid the scroll next to the sword. Now think of this scroll as you. The scroll is a separate entity from the sword. You agree? Yeah, Naruto nodded. Now pretend that the sword is the Kyuubi, the scroll is you and I am the Yondaime Hokage. But Yondaime Hokage had yellow hair. Kid, yeah? Just shut up. Okay. Zabuza took in a deep breath to control his desire to just kill the brat and be done with it. Just pretend that I am the Hokage, and I am going to seal the Kyuubi in you, okay? Now watch. Zabuza made a line of blood from his thumb on the blade, followed by a few hand seals, and slammed his hand onto the sword. The sword vanished in a puff of smoke. The markings on the scroll turned red, contrasting against the white of the background. Zabuza looked at the blonde. I just sealed Kabikirabocho inside the scroll. The same way, your Hokage sealed the demon inside you. Zabuza explained. While the scroll is not the sword, it carries the sword. If I want to give you my sword, I can just give you the scroll and add your blood to the blood seal binding the scroll shut, and you can summon the sword. If you have the scroll, you have the sword. If I burn the scroll, the sword is lost too. You can say that the scroll is now, for all event and purposes, the sword. That means that sword is the scroll, doesn't it? Naruto asked. Zabuza nodded and said, I said that you could say that, but it truly is not the sword. If you try to fight me with the scroll, you die faster than you can say Mizukage. Zabuza picked up the scroll and tossed into the air and catching it. He looked at Naruto again. Understand now, Gaki? Naruto nodded slowly. It means that I am not the Kyuubi, only used to stop him, but like the scroll and the sword, the Kyuubi is me. While I am not the Kyuubi, The Kyuubi, for all events and purposes, is me? He looked at Zabuza tentatively. Zabuza nodded. So, because I ran away from Konoha, the Kyuubi is also not there? Zabuza nodded again. It seemed that the Gaki had finally understood. The blonde sat pondering for a while. So, why do all the villagers say that I am the demon? He asked. Because they are fools, the lot of them. Civilians rarely understand the workings of fuinjutsu, as most of the time, even ninja don't get fuinjutsu. Zabuza said softly. It made Naruto's hair rise on his neck. Zabuza started emitting a faint killing intent. Dumb villagers just like to call you names. For a moment Naruto got the impression that Zabuza was no longer talking about Konoha. It was Haku who brought up the subject of the future, breaking the tense atmosphere. What are we going to do now, Zabuza-sama? Originally you only agreed to let me take care of him until he was conscious again. Zabuza glanced at the blonde who looked up towards the bandaged ninja. Zabuza asked him, well, Gaki, do you want to learn from me? He asked. Naruto's eyes widened as he asked, you will teach me? Why? Zabuza was taken aback. He hadn't expected to be questioned. The boy was sharp, no matter how much he acted like a fool. Zabuza decided to be frank. I ran away from my village because I couldn't beat the man responsible for the ruin of my village. As long as he remains in power, I will be hunted. If I have strong shinobi with me, I will be able to fight them off, and one day, fight that man again and take back my village from him. Zabuza looked into the blue eyes of the blonde. You have an unmatched potential, Gaki. You may very well be a key player in my siege on Kiri. You said you wanted to become a shinobi, but any village that you approach will either turn you away and inform Konoha out of fear from retaliation from your former village, or will treat you like a leper while using you as a secret weapon against Konoha. Naruto thought about Zabuza's point. He looked up and said, how is that different from what you want? Zabuza smiled evilly. It isn't, Gaki, but I will treat you like I treat every other man under my command, unlike those villages, who will hate you for what you are. But I warn you, if you want my acknowledgement, you'll have to earn it. This made Naruto grin as he said, okay. Zabuza held out his hand. Then we have a deal. From one demon to another. Naruto grinned even wider and shook his new sensei's hand. Suddenly, Zabuza pulled Naruto towards himself and kneed him in the guts. As Naruto fell to the ground, coughing and clutching his stomach, Zabuza said, Lesson number 1. Never trust another shinobi so easily. Zabuza turned and started to walk off. I am a hard teacher. By this time next week, you are going to want to give up. He warned. I'll never give up. Naruto wheezed from the ground as Haku tried to help him up. I wish I could give up. Naruto thought for the 6th day in succession as he lay on the ground, every inch of his body screaming in pain. Zabuza hadn't been kidding when he had said he was a harsh teacher. He obviously belonged to the school of, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. After Naruto had come with them to their current base in the Earth Country, he had found that there were around 9 more people in the base. All of them wore mist Hite 8. Haku told him that they were followers of Zabuza sensei who had left with him because they had been part of the coup d'état. Most of them were okay, except for 2 twins Gozu and Maizu. Those 2 were sadistic little bastards and they loved to pick on Naruto and Haku. All the others kept to themselves and to their own village comrades. They rarely spoke to either Naruto or Haku. Naruto had been very excited to begin his training. Zabuza sensei had started his training. He had decided to test his stamina. Naruto had ended up surprising everyone with his never-ending stamina. Zabuza sensei had merely laughed and made his training even tougher. He was started on physical training before Haku was to teach him how to mold chakra. It was another thing that had earned Naruto a wallop into the ground. Zabuza had said that he should just disown Naruto for thinking that chakra was called Chitara. He had also said that he pitied any fool who had the misfortune to be Naruto's teacher at the academy. Somewhere far away, Iruka had a sneezing fit in his classroom. What Zabuza had planned for Naruto was a grueling series of physical exercises that left the blonde too tired to stand. He would walk in once or twice in a day and throw a critical eye over Naruto and leave. This had happened for 7 days. By now, Naruto was sure that he wouldn't survive another week of this, but he didn't want to give his merciless teacher the satisfaction of watching him whine. He saw Zabuza sensei's feet approaching as he lay stomach first, exhausted, on the ground. Rest now, Gaki. Tomorrow you start chakra training. Then the feet retreated. Naruto wanted to jump in joy. Finally, his aching body denied him his wish. Instead, he satisfied himself with a small, yay, before Haku hoisted him in a fireman's carry and took him to the room the two boys shared. That's all for now. If you enjoyed, then please like, share and do comments.